Chapter 3006. Ji Tianqing had never been lenient in killing those Protoss. What's more, those Protoss maids and guards had only themselves to blame. But his methods were so ruthless, and his requirements were so harsh. The faces of Lai Fu, Zhen Hong, and the others all changed, and their eyes showed horror. They didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would be so angry and start a massacre just because his daughter was criticized. Didn't he spoil his daughter too much? Although they thought so in their hearts, Lai Fu and the others didn't dare to refute and could only act according to the order. After saying yes, the five immediately left the hall to investigate the source of the rumors. Under the strict order, the five people were extremely efficient. In just a quarter of an hour, they found the original rumormongers. They selected 5 of the worst among those rumormongers and beheaded them in public in the square. Those 5 people not only created rumors, but also spread rumors. They even added oil and vinegar, distorted the facts, and said filthy things. They deserved to be killed. Hundreds of maids and guards gathered in the square and watched the 5 people being killed with their own eyes. All of them were so frightened that their hearts trembled and their souls scattered. After all, they also participated in the rumor and discussion. If they really wanted to investigate, their crimes didn't deserve death, but they couldn't escape punishment. Later, Lai Fu clarified the truth in public and strictly ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut and not make any more rumors. Many maids and guards quickly nodded to show that they understood. Soon, this matter was dealt with. The rumors that were spreading in the Changfeng courtyard were finally stopped. It was 6:45, and it was time for dinner. Lai Fu ordered the imperial chef to prepare a table full of dishes and personally sent them to Ji Tianqing's residence. He also wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to Ji Tianqing and ease the atmosphere. Although Ji Tianqing ordered the 5 rumormongers to be killed and didn't punish him, Zhen Hong, and the others. But he knew in his heart that Ji Tianqing was just giving face to the third prince and didn't touch them for the time being. If they did something again next time, Ji Tianqing wouldn't be soft-hearted to kill them. Originally, Ji Tianqing didn't have the habit of eating. He would only occasionally attend banquets on important occasions. He originally wanted to refuse and ask Lai Fu to return the banquet. Friends, please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, however, when he thought about it again, Wuxia had never been to such an occasion, nor had he tasted the delicacies of the divine realm. Therefore, he brought Wuxia and White Dragon to the restaurant for dinner. Dozens of exquisite delicacies were placed on the white jade round table, which had a circumference of 10 feet. Not only did it look, smell, and taste good, but it also shone with divine light and was full of spiritual energy. Wuxia was very happy to see this. Not only was she amazed, but she also pulled Ji Tianqing aside and asked him all sorts of questions. She was interested in everything. Ji Tianqing pulled her to sit down and accompanied her to taste each dish. The White Dragon stood at the side and answered Wuxia's questions from time to time. Lai Fu also stood obediently, constantly pouring wine for Ji Tianqing. Although Wuxia was young, she had inherited her mother's elegance. Even when tasting such a large table of delicacies, she was still very elegant, lively, and cute. Seeing her smile continuously, happy and satisfied, Ji Tianqing's mood became even more cheerful, and more smiles appeared on his face. Seeing this scene, Lai Fu's heart finally fell to the ground. He thought to himself, young Master Tianqing's love for his daughter is really hard to come by. It seems that I've made the right move this time. In the future, if I want to get closer to young Master Tianqing, I just have to do my best to please his daughter. After an hour, dinner was over. The amount of delicacies on the table was not reduced, and many dishes were still the same. Wuxia only tasted each dish twice, so of course, she could not eat much. But even so, she was still very full, very happy, and very satisfied. Ji Tianqing brought Wuxia out of the restaurant and went to the garden to look at the stars, planning to tell her a story. Just as he walked into the garden, he saw that in the clear night sky, there were not only silver stars, but also dense multicolored light spots. Wuxia looked up and asked in confusion, "Father, didn't you say that most of the stars are silver and white? Why are there so many colorful ones?" Ji Tianqing observed carefully and realized that the colorful lights floating in the night sky were thousands of exquisite lanterns. He patted Wuxia's head and explained with a smile, "Those are not stars, they are all lanterns." "Why are there so many lanterns?" Wuxia raised her cute little face, blinked her big clear eyes, and asked, "What festival is it today?" Without waiting for Ji Tianqing to reply, Lai Fu took the initiative to explain, "Young lord, this is the annual Lantern Festival in the capital. And NB friends, please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, SP, it was to commemorate the ancestors who founded the Divine Kingdom, and also to celebrate the completion of the Divine Kingdom. Every year at this time, the Lantern Festival lasted for 2 days. At night, the citizens would walk on the streets and release their own exquisite lanterns. Not only would the city be lively and bustling, there would also be all kinds of delicacies, vendors, and programs, as well as all kinds of lantern competitions. If young lord went to the city to play, you would definitely be able to enjoy countless beautiful sceneries and taste all kinds of delicacies. With young lord's intelligence and wisdom, if you were to participate in the lantern competition or guess the riddles, you would definitely be able to come out on top." Lai Fu explained the origin and content of the Lantern Festival, and then praised Wuxia. Although Wuxia was clever, she did not take Lai Fu's boasting seriously. But everyone liked to hear praises, so of course she would feel happy. Thus, she became interested in the Lantern Festival in the city and looked forward to it. Even if she did not say anything, Ji Tianqing saw her bright eyes and envious face looking at the sky full of lanterns and guessed her thoughts. "Wuxia, father will bring you to the Lantern Festival, okay?" Ji Tianqing pulled Wuxia and asked with a smile. Wuxia smiled sweetly and quickly nodded, "Okay. Father is the best. Then let's go." Ji Tianqing chuckled and left the garden with Wuxia and White Dragon. Lai Fu quickly followed and asked respectfully, "Young lord, if you take young lord to the Lantern Festival, this old servant will send 2 guard captains to follow you. They can protect you and young lord, and you can also have people around you, which will save you a lot of trouble." Ji Tianqing thought of the 3 guard captains, frowned, and said, "Don't let them come. Just let Zhenhong follow us." How could Lai Fu dare to say no? Of course, he nodded and said with a smile, "Okay. This old servant will inform Miss Zhenhong. She is meticulous and will take care of young lord more carefully." After that, he quickly used his divine sense to inform Sir Zhenhong. After a while, when Ji Tianqing and the others walked to the gate of Changfeng Courtyard, Sir Zhenhong also rushed over. She came in front of everyone, bowed to Ji Tianqing, and greeted him and Wuxia. Wuxia nodded with a smile, called Sister Zhenhong, and secretly stared at her to observe. This call of sister made Zhenhong's cheeks a little hot, and her eyes became evasive. She did not dare to look directly at Ji Tianqing and his daughter. But she still liked this smart and cute little girl very much. Chapter 3007. Ji Tianqing and the others took a luxurious carriage and left the long-wind courtyard. The carriage was very spacious, like a small moving palace. Not only was the interior magnificent, comfortable, and convenient, but it was also pulled by 8 pure white Pegasus horses. On the cornice of the 4 corners of the carriage, there were also luxurious gemstone lamps hanging, showing the emblem of the royal family. When the people of the royal city saw it, they naturally knew that it was the carriage of the royal family. The people in the carriage should be relatives of the royal family, or noble princes. Naturally, when the carriage drove on the wide street, countless people moved to the sides. After a short quarter of an hour, the carriage drove to Ninefold Street and stopped. This 100-meter wide street was actually bustling with people, jostling shoulder to shoulder. Looking from the street to the end of the street, it was crowded with people. Countless people walked in groups of 3 or 5, holding beautiful lanterns in their hands, their faces full of smiles. Countless shops on both sides of the street were also decorated with lanterns and colored banners, hanging all kinds of lights. Ji Tianqing and the others got out of the carriage and walked on the street, enjoying the scenery along the way. The coachman was guarding the carriage, waiting on the street. Ji Tianqing walked in front with Wu Shuang, Zhen Hong and Bai Long followed behind. Although the street was very crowded, Ji Tianqing exuded an invisible divine power. The pedestrians and people around were blocked by an invisible force, unable to get close to them. In this way, no matter how crowded the street was, they were unimpeded. Wu Shuang looked at everything around her with curiosity, her delicate little face full of smiles. She often stopped and watched for a moment when she saw something interesting. For example, some clever people made a variety of lanterns in different shapes. They were not the traditional lanterns at all, but were made into figures, kites, and divine beasts. There were also many lanterns made into lifelike divine birds, spreading their wings and flying in the night sky, which were particularly eye-catching. Wu Shuang was fascinated by it, and while she was amazed, she would also ask Ji Tianqing. The father and daughter held hands and strolled leisurely, which was also very warm. Bai Long and Zhen Hong looked at their backs, and their minds relaxed and were full of warmth. When they passed by a shop selling lanterns, Wu Shuang stared at a doll lantern for a long time. That friends please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, the doll lantern was very realistic. It was a 3-foot-tall boy. He didn't look childish at all. Instead, he looked exceptionally handsome and cold. There was even a hint of arrogance between his brows. Even though this puppet was of the Protoss race and had a head full of white hair. However, it didn't make people feel strange. Instead, it made him look even colder. Zhen Hong's attention was always on Wu Shuang. He saw Wu Shuang staring at the doll lantern as if she was thinking about something. Therefore, Zhen Hong took the initiative to buy the doll lantern and gave it to Wu Shuang. Wu Shuang was stunned for a moment before reaching out to take the lantern. She thanked Zhen Hong. Zhen Hong smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Young master is too polite. I think this lantern is exquisitely made and interesting. Young master should like it, right?" "Yes." Wu Shuang nodded. She held the doll lantern and looked at it carefully. Ji Tianqing touched Wu Shuang's head and asked, "Wu Shuang, there were so many beautiful lanterns before. There were peacocks, phoenixes, and all kinds of divine beasts. Why did you take a fancy to this lantern?" Wu Shuang pursed her lips, lowered her head, and whispered, "Father, I miss my brother." Ji Tianqing instantly fell silent. He carefully observed the doll lantern again. It was actually somewhat similar to Wu Hen's appearance, silhouette, and temperament. He immediately understood. No wonder Wu Shuang stared at this lantern for a long time. He sighed silently in his heart. He squatted down and took Wu Shuang's hand. With a solemn expression, he said to her, "Wu Shuang, father will do his best to find your brother as soon as possible." Wu Shuang nodded and hugged the doll lantern even tighter. Bai Long watched from the side. His mood was complicated, and he sighed secretly. Although Zhen Hong did not know what was going on, he could feel that Ji Tianqing and Wu Shuang's mood was somewhat heavy. Thus, she pulled Wu Shuang's hand and comforted her, "Young mistress, the Lantern Festival is a tradition of our Kingdom of Gods and is also the most important festival of the year. As long as you light this lantern and let it fly into the night sky, it will fly to where you want it to go with your thoughts and blessings. The people you care about will also feel your feelings. You can try." Wu Shuang looked at Zhen Hong with burning eyes and asked, "Really?" Ji Tianqing and White Dragon thought to themselves. Of course, it was fake. However, both of them remained silent, not wanting to spoil the atmosphere. Zhen Hong nodded at Wu Shuang and said seriously, "Of course it's true. Try it. Friends, please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 Recommended reading. Wuxia hesitated for a moment before injecting divine power into the flower lantern to light it up. Suddenly, the doll lantern became bright and gorgeous. It slowly rose into the night sky and flew toward the distant sky. This kind of flower lantern was expensive to make. Not only was the material special and strong, but it also contained arrays and god stones. With the support of the arrays and divine power, the flower lantern could fly to very far places. Not long after, the doll lantern flew thousands of feet into the night sky and became one of the lanterns and stars in the sky. Wuxia kept looking up at the doll lantern, her eyes full of hope and expectation. She also prayed silently in her heart, hoping that her brother would be safe and that he could return soon and reunite with his family. After a long time, when the lanterns flew further and further away, they could no longer see them clearly. Only then did they continue shopping. Next, they shopped several streets and bought a few more lanterns and many snacks. Wuxia even participated in a lantern riddles competition and successfully won the championship, winning the applause and amazement of the audience. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Ji Tianqing, who had been smiling and in a good mood, suddenly frowned. In his deep eyes, a cold murderous intent flashed. Because his divine sense detected that within 1,000 feet radius, there were several groups of people secretly watching them. In fact, from the moment they left the Changfeng court in the carriage, those groups of people had been secretly watching them. They had been watching until now and had not left. The street was bustling with people. Ji Tianqing was playing happily with Wuxia and did not seem to notice anything strange. Those groups of people secretly watching them became more and more bold and relaxed, and even came closer. Ji Tianqing did not want to ruin Wuxia's mood, and did not want those flies to follow nearby. He quietly released a dozen or so strands of divine power, condensing them into invisible swords, and stabbed at those groups of people. The next moment, those groups of people who were watching them stiffened and stood in place with frightened expressions. 12 masters' divine souls were seriously injured and fell unconscious on the spot, bleeding from their 7 orifices. The remaining masters were also seriously injured. Only then did they realize that they had been exposed and fled into the distance in a panic. White Dragon saw Ji Tianqing's strange look and guessed that something had happened. He asked, "Master, what happened?" Ji Tianqing shook his head gently and said, "Nothing, I just drove away a few flies." Chapter 3008. In the North District of the Royal City, there was a group of majestic palaces where high-ranking officials, rich people, and influential people lived. In this group of palaces, there was a palace made of black stone and golden tiles called the Holy Flame Palace. This was an ancient palace with a history of thousands of years. Many years ago, the first prince had established his own residence after he came of age. The king was sympathetic and thought highly of him, so he gave the Holy Flame Palace to him as his residence. Now, the first prince had passed away many years ago. His successor, Duanmu Crown Prince, became the owner of the Holy Flame Palace. Relying on his father's blessings, Duanmu Crown Prince continued to enjoy wealth and power. The Holy Flame Palace was still the first prince's residence and had not been demoted to a crown prince's residence. Many of the high-ranking officials knew that this was not because the king liked or thought highly of Duanmu Crown Prince. It was because the first prince had sacrificed himself for the king, which made the king feel guilty. No matter what, the king had to take care of the crown prince. He could not let others think that he was unkind. It was late at night, but the Holy Flame Palace was brightly lit and filled with people. Countless guards were patrolling. The first prince was hosting a banquet in the hall to entertain the influential people. The second prince, Duanmu Xiong, did not attend the banquet. He was sitting in a secret underground room, thinking about something with a cold expression. The dim light in the corner shone on half of his face. One could vaguely see that his expression was cold and his eyes were malicious. Since Duanmu Xiong left Tianxue County and returned to the royal city, everyone felt that he had changed. Especially those in the first prince's residence, they were all surprised and confused. In the past, the second prince was elegant and cheerful. He often went out and showed himself in public. Especially during the Lantern Festival, he would definitely go out and have fun. He would even participate in a few lantern and lantern riddles competitions and win a few places in the top 3. He was elegant and elegant. But in the past month, the second prince had been living in seclusion. He claimed to be cultivating in seclusion. The few times he showed up, his aura was malicious and cold, which made people feel intimidated. Outsiders did not know the reason. However, the second prince and his trusted aide were well aware of the situation. It was all because of that bastard Tianqing. Duanmu Xiong would never forget the pain and humiliation he had suffered that night in the Maple Woods Manor. Body readers, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. He was poisoned, his internal organs and meridians were damaged, and the tools to carry on his ancestral line were destroyed. He even had his face stepped on by Ji Tianqing, forcing him to lower his head and apologize. Most importantly, the poison was still in his body and could erupt at any time. This was a nightmare that Duanmu Xiong could never forget for the rest of his life. For more than a month, he didn't dare to sleep for even a moment. As long as he closed his eyes, the scene of that night would appear in his mind. He was suffering great pain and suffering, and his mind was on the verge of collapse. During this period of time, he had used all his resources to find the palace's imperial physicians, secular doctors, and several divine doctors. Even high divine lord realm powerhouses, he also found quite a few. However, just as Ji Tianqing had said, no one could cure the poison in his body. Only 2 miracle doctors could help him regrow his roots and temporarily relieve his pain. This was already the limit. Duanmu Xiong was about to go crazy. There were many times when he was on the verge of breaking down and wanted to give up. He wanted to die together with Ji Tianqing. He would rather die together with Ji Tianqing than be tortured again. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black shadow flew into the secret room and arrived in front of Duanmu Xiong. The black shadow was wearing a large black robe and a bronze mask, so his face couldn't be seen. However, from his body shape, he was a lean and capable middle-aged man. The black shadow reported in a deep voice, reporting to the crown prince, the people who were watching tonight were discovered and were all injured by Tianqing. They have already retreated. Duanmu Xiong's expression didn't change. He looked coldly at the black shadow and asked, "He has already been in the capital for a day, what's the result of the investigation?" The black shadow replied, reporting to the crown prince, "Since he entered the capital, more than a dozen of our small teams have been watching him. After a day of investigation, we have gained a lot of important information." Duanmu Xiong raised his eyebrows and his eyes brightened. "Speak." The black shadow reported, "He was taken away by the third prince's men as soon as he entered the city and settled in the Longwind Court. The leader of the maids in the Longwind Court is Divine Lord Zhenhong. He seems to be interested in Zhenhong and asked her to serve him at noon." The news spread in the Changfeng courtyard, and everyone knew about it. After Zhenhong went to bed, he swaggered around the city with his daughter and played for a few hours in Changfeng courtyard. At night, he suppressed the rumors and slanders and killed 5 maids and guards. The black shadow concisely described what happened in the Changfeng courtyard. Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, you have to report it to me. After Duanmu Xiong heard this, he furrowed his brows, and his eyes flickered with hatred. Damn beast, he just got in touch with Prince Yu Sanjing and moved into Changfeng courtyard, and he slept with Zhenhong. Duanmu Xiong had a close relationship with the third prince and the princess consort. He had been to Changfeng courtyard many times, so of course he knew the immortal Zhenhong. Moreover, he was also attracted by Zhenhong's special temperament and wanted to get his hands on him. But the third prince seemed to value Zhenhong very much, and he seemed to have other uses for it. Duanmu Xiong didn't dare to act rashly, so he could only endure and wait for an opportunity. But he didn't expect that the fruit he was looking for would be picked by Ji Tianqing. The most hateful thing is that the beast has a daughter. He already has a family, so why did he fight with me for Ning Xiyuan and Zhenhong? He is a despicable, hypocritical, heinous, and bastard. Duanmu Xiong clenched his fists, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He cursed with a ferocious face. The black shadow remained silent. After Duanmu Xiong calmed down a little, he persuaded, maybe it's just a rumor. After all, he suppressed the rumors and killed 5 guards and maids. Duanmu Xiong sneered, what about tonight? He went to the Lantern Festival, who followed him? The black shadow answered truthfully, the immortal Zhenhong. Ha! Duanmu Xiong sneered even more disdainfully. First he killed people to suppress the rumors, then he took his new wife to go shopping. I have never seen such a shameless person. The black shadow remained silent and didn't say much. Duanmu Xiong gradually calmed down and thought for a moment. He said in a low voice, he chased me from Tianxue County to the Imperial City, and has been suppressing and humiliating me. If I don't get rid of him, I will never have a day of peace. Today he just arrived at the Imperial City, and he took Zhenhong by force. He even deliberately showed off in public, just to disgust me. If I don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I don't know what he will do again. After that, he ordered the Black Shadow, go and tell Purple Fiend Star that I am willing to pay 30 billion for Tianqing's life. The Black Shadow's body shook, and he persuaded, Prince, 30 billion will empty the Imperial City's savings. The eldest prince will definitely be furious, haha. Duanmu Xiong sneered, so what if I go bankrupt? When has my big brother ever cared about my life? I have had enough. Even if I have to die together with that beast, I won't hesitate. Chapter 3009. Duanmu Xiong's attitude was firm and resolute. The Black Shadow hesitated for a while before he tried to persuade Duanmu Xiong again, Your Highness, please think twice. The Evil Blood Palace has failed twice and lost several generals. They definitely won't accept this task again. Duanmu Xiong said in a low voice, 30 billion is the highest price in the past 1,000 years. The Evil Blood Palace will consider it. The Black Shadow was silent for a while. He could not persuade Duanmu Xiong, so he bowed and said, Yes, Your Highness. Then the Black Shadow merged into the darkness and disappeared. In the southern district of Yinwu City. The splendid mansion of the second prince was located at the end of the Vermilion Bird Avenue. The mansion covered an area of nearly 10 square miles. It not only had a spacious yard and a garden, but also numerous exquisite houses and palaces. Tonight was the Lantern Festival. The mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Everywhere was jubilant and full of people. Not only the family members of the mansion were having fun, but many guards, maids, and servants were also roaming in the garden at night. However, in the study of the second prince deep in the palace, the atmosphere was different. Different from the jubilation outside, the study was heavily guarded and the atmosphere was quite solemn and austere. 4 of the prince's advisors with different appearances were standing respectfully in the study, helping the second prince come up with a plan. 5 divine emperors in armor also stood solemnly and listened to the second prince's orders. These Sir Gods were all important figures who held great authority in their hands. They were either trusted aides of the second prince, generals with outstanding military exploits, or governors and top nobles. Sitting behind the desk was a middle-aged man in a golden robe with a golden crown on his head. He was the second prince. He was tall and sturdy with a dignified appearance. His bell-sized eyes were shining brightly and exuded awe-inspiring majesty. He had a goatee on his chin, which was neatly combed. His temples were white, but his thick eyebrows were slanted to his temples. This second prince was clearly a man of great talent and bold vision. Just a moment ago, the second prince had finished discussing some important matters with his aides and confidants. After he made his decision and gave the order, the armored confidants all saluted to show that they had obeyed the order. The second prince waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. The confidants hurriedly saluted and left the study one after another. Only the second prince and his 4 advisors were left in the study, and they soon quieted down. For many years, the second prince had been eager to recruit talents and had recruited many capable people. There were more than 1,000 diners in the prince's mansion. Among the nearly 1,000 people with special abilities, more than 40 of them were exceptionally talented and were hired by the second prince as his aides. Normally, these aides would rack their brains to help him plan and deal with all kinds of affairs. The 4 aides in the study were the elites and leaders of the group of aides. Especially the white-haired old man in the lead. He wore the attire of an immortal and learned scholar, and he held a silver horsetail whisk with both hands, causing him to seem extremely unfathomable. This person was the chief advisor, Yanlong Celestial Lord. The second prince leaned back in his large chair and closed his eyes to rest. His hands were rubbing the space between his eyebrows. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Lord Yanlong bowed slightly and calmly reported, "Master, it has been an entire day since Jianqing entered the capital. Many things have happened in this day. First, he was taken to the Longwind courtyard by the third prince's people for a temporary stay. Lord Yanlong reported to the second prince all the information that his spies and scouts had brought back to him. The second prince closed his eyes and listened quietly. No one could see any change in his expression. After a while, Lord Yanlong finished reporting everything that had happened in the day. Only then did the second prince open his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. He seemed to be talking to himself. Jianqing just moved into the Longwind courtyard, and he let the captain of the maidservants serve him in bed. Haha, that kid is vicious, but he is not a shallow person. This must be the third prince's honey trap. He wants to completely trap that kid and tie him to his chariot. Lord Yanlong nodded in agreement and said with a smile, "Master is wise." Judging from Tianqing's previous behavior, he is not the kind of person who is attached to women. The incident of serving him in bed was most likely the third prince's honey trap. But Tianqing then let his daughter appear and took her to stroll around the Longwind courtyard for several hours. At night, they suppressed the rumors and slanders and executed a few guards and maids. These 2 things are signals. Tianqing strongly and clearly expressed his position. Obviously, he is not willing to accept the third prince's honey trap, nor does he want to be the third prince's vanguard general. The second prince listened with a smile and showed a satisfied expression. Then tell me, what is the situation between Tianqing and the third prince? Lord Yanlong thought for a while and said in a serious tone, "They are neither friendly nor distant. On the surface, they seem to be allies, grasshoppers tied to a string. But in fact, Tianqing and the third prince are not of one mind." Another hunchbacked aide added, "Judging from Tianqing's past behavior, he is very arrogant and will not submit to anyone. Even when facing the third prince, he only treats him as a friend, not as his master." Another middle-aged aide in a purple robe said with a serious expression, "Tianqing is an extremely cunning person. He has long understood the situation in the capital. Even if he is very close to the third prince, he will not truly rely on the third prince. He knows better than us that only by waiting for the right price can he seize the greatest benefits. Once he is eager to pledge loyalty to the third prince, his value will be greatly reduced." Several aides spoke one after another, expressing their views on Tianqing. After they finished, the second prince nodded and said in a serious tone, "That's right. Your analysis is correct and comprehensive. Tianqing and the third prince's state shows that they are not completely united. We still have a chance." "A chance?" Lord Yanlong frowned in confusion and asked, "My lord, what do you mean?" The second prince's lips curled into a cold smile. "Even though Tian Xing and I have a deep grudge against each other, he only killed my men and stole my belongings. There is no direct enmity between him and this king. At this critical moment, I am magnanimous and will not pursue him for the time being. In addition, I have been fighting openly and covertly with the third prince for so many years and have been able to maintain a balance without any results. Now, the fifth prince has appeared out of nowhere and is about to be crowned crown prince. At this time, we should set aside our prejudices and grudges and work together with the third prince to deal with the fifth prince. If I were to discuss cooperation with the third prince, he would definitely refuse. Tianqing has come at the right time. We will try to rope him in and use him as a bridge. I believe the third prince will agree." The aides thought for a moment and showed expressions of agreement. Lord Yanlong also smiled. "That's right. As long as we can convince Tianqing, we can force the third prince to agree to the cooperation. This subordinate is willing to step forward and help the lord with his troubles." Chapter 30:10. Yanlong wanted to share the burden and solve the problem. In fact, he was the one who invited Ji Tianqing on behalf of the second prince. The second prince nodded without hesitation. "All right, I'll leave this matter to Yanlong." After a short pause, he continued, "Let's set the meeting place at Qingyang Villa in the western suburbs. There are many people in the city, and Tianqing is being watched by all forces. He must be on guard. He'll be relieved to meet me outside the city." Yanlong bowed and said, "Yes, Your Highness. I'll do it right away." After that, Lord Yanlong bowed and left the study. The three aides stayed and were about to report other things to the second prince. Just then, a beam of spiritual light flew from the night sky and landed in front of the second prince. When the spiritual light dissipated, a message jade slip appeared. There was a special purple symbol on the slip. The second prince knew it was a secret message from Zixia Xing. Zixia Xing was the vice palace master of the Evil Blood Palace. Usually, Palace Master Xue Xing cultivated in seclusion and rarely showed up. He was one of the most mysterious experts in the entire Bloodfire Divine country. Zixia Xing was basically in charge of the affairs of the Evil Blood Palace. But many people knew that the Evil Blood Palace had taken refuge with the second prince. Therefore, Zixia Xing had to ask the second prince for help when he encountered a difficult decision. The second prince picked up the slip and read it with his divine sense. After a while, he threw the slip on the table and sneered. "That idiot Duanmu Xiong can't sit still anymore. Tianqing has only been in the capital for a day, and he's already lost his mind. He's willing to spend 30 billion god stones to ask the Evil Blood Palace to kill Tianqing." The three aides showed complicated expressions when they heard the news. The hunchbacked aide bowed slightly and said, "My lord, our main task now is to prevent the fifth prince from becoming the crown prince. To deal with the fifth prince, we have to win over Tianqing and cooperate with the third prince. Therefore, Tianqing is still useful for the time being. We can't kill him." The purple-robed aide also nodded in agreement and said in a disdainful tone, "Second prince is young and full of vigor, but he is not good at scheming and scheming. It will be difficult for him to achieve great things. I heard that he was interested in the captain of the maid team in Changfeng Courtyard. He must have heard about what happened today, which was why he was so angry. A mere captain of the maidservants is enough to make him lose his composure." Sigh. Another advisor said thoughtfully, "With the first prince's financial situation, it would be very difficult for him to take out 30 billion divine stones. Unless, the second prince wanted to empty the first prince's treasury. By doing this, he's basically fighting with his back to the river. He's not leaving any leeway." The three aides had said everything that needed to be said, and the second prince did not say anything else. He picked up the jade slip and said in a dignified tone, "Purple Malefic, reply to that idiot Duanmu Xiong." Tell him that he wants to buy Tianqing's life with 30 billion. That's too naive of him. If he was really sincere, then he would add another bargaining chip. Angry blood sacred tree. Unless he takes out 30 billion and the furious blood sacred tree, this king will agree. After saying that, the second prince waved his hand and sent the jade slip out. When the three aides heard the words angry blood sacred tree, their bodies shook and revealed a look of deep shock. Because the three of them knew the origin of the angry blood sacred tree, as well as its powerful effects and precious value. Many years ago, the first prince sacrificed himself for the king, which shocked the entire blood flame divine kingdom. At that time, the entire capital was covered in mourning, and countless people and courtiers were crying and wailing. The king also blamed himself and was very sad about the first prince's sacrifice. Therefore, the king gave the first prince a lot of posthumous titles. He also did his best to reward and comfort the first prince's widow and 2 sons. There was no need to say much about the various hereditary titles and treasures. But the most shocking thing was that the king actually bestowed the angry blood sacred tree to the first prince's residence. As everyone knew, the blood flame sacred tree was the #1 treasure of the divine kingdom. As for the angry blood sacred tree, it was a small tree that grew from the roots of the blood flame sacred tree. Although the value and effect of this item was not as good as the blood flame sacred tree, it was still a divine king. However, it was also a supreme-grade monarch-level divine object. Its effect was very similar to the bloody flame divine tree. It was equivalent to a weakened version. With the angry blood sacred tree, one could activate their bloodline to the greatest extent, strengthen their talent, and assist in cultivating the royal family's inherited mental cultivation techniques. It was not an exaggeration to say that with the angry blood sacred tree, one's strength would increase by at least 5 times. Back then, the king had bestowed the angry blood sacred tree to the first prince's residence to compensate the 2 princes. Who would have thought that the 2 princes were people with mediocre talent, unlike the first prince who was extremely talented? They had used the angry blood sacred tree to cultivate for many years and used up a huge amount of cultivation resources. In the end, the first prince was only a 3rd-level divine monarch, and the second prince was only a 2nd-level divine monarch. It was also fortunate that they had the help of the angry blood sacred tree and the countless resources and elixirs bestowed by the king. Otherwise, with Duanmu Xiong's dull talent, he could not even reach the 2nd-level divine monarch. The 2nd prince, 3rd prince, 4th princess, and 5th prince all coveted the angry blood sacred tree. However, the king had bestowed that treasure to the first prince's residence. Even if they wanted it, they could only suppress their thoughts and not scheme to snatch it. Unless, they had a way to make the 2 princes willingly give the angry blood sacred tree to someone else. Therefore, the 2nd prince would often think of ways to cheat the first prince's residence of the angry blood sacred tree. Although Duanmu Xiong was dull, he was not too stupid. He also knew that the angry blood sacred tree was bestowed by the king and represented his father's blessings. That was the first prince's residence's heirloom and must not be lost. In the past, no matter how the 2nd prince tried to beat around the bush and scheme, Duanmu Xiong would always be able to resist. Duanmu Xiong had been able to hold himself back from the start to the end, resolutely refusing to take out the raging blood divine tree. As for this time, the 2nd prince was just following the usual practice and mentioned it again. He did not have much hope. The reason why he wanted the angry blood sacred tree was more to make Duanmu Xiong retreat. After all, Tianqing could not be killed now. The 3 aides also understood the 2nd prince's thoughts and did not say anything. Soon, the 2nd prince put this matter aside and discussed other matters with the 3 aides. In the wee hours of the morning, the bustling royal capital gradually calmed down. The tourists and commoners on the streets gradually returned to their residences and homes. The streets and alleys also regained their tranquility and desolation. Ji Tianqing brought Wu Shuang, White Dragon, and Zhen Hong around the city for a few hours. Wuxia had a great time and enjoyed himself to the fullest. Late at night, Ji Tianqing brought the three back to South Wind Street. The carriage had been waiting there, and the coachman stood there respectfully. Everyone boarded the carriage and returned to Longwind Courtyard. 15 minutes later, the carriage arrived at the gate of Longwind Courtyard and stopped. Ji Tianqing and the others had just alighted from the carriage when they saw an equally luxurious carriage parked beside the bronze lion at the gate. A white-haired old man wearing a white robe and holding a horsetail whisk walked down from the carriage with a smile on his face towards Ji Tianqing. Chapter 30:11. This white-haired old man was the second prince's chief of staff, Emperor Yanlong. He walked to Ji Tianqing with a horsetail whisk and bowed with a smile. "Greetings, young master Tianheng. I am Yanlong." Ji Tianqing and the others stopped and looked at Celestial Lord Yanlong. Yanlong. Ji Tianqing frowned and asked, "The second prince's chief of staff." He had investigated the second prince's background. Therefore, he knew about Emperor Yanlong. He also knew that this person's strength was a 7th-degree realm high god monarch. "That's me." Celestial Lord Yanlong bowed and replied with a smile. Ji Tianqing asked calmly, "Lord Yanlong, are you here on behalf of the second prince to send me a message? Or are you inviting me to be your guest?" Celestial Lord Yanlong showed a look of admiration and said, "I've long heard that Mr.'s wisdom is unparalleled. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I'm truly impressed." "You are right. I am here on behalf of the Lord to invite you to Qingyang Villa in the southern suburbs." Ji Tianqing had known for a long time that the second prince was good at scheming. He was a ruthless and cunning person. Even though he had a feud with the second prince, they were like fire and water. But at the critical moment, the second prince would definitely make compromises after weighing the pros and cons. Especially this time when the king wanted to make the fifth prince the crown prince. The second prince and the third prince were caught off guard and would definitely work together to stop the fifth prince. They had been fighting openly and secretly for many years and had a deep grudge against each other. Even if they wanted to work together, they couldn't do it face to face. They needed a bridge. Ji Tianqing knew that he was the best candidate. Therefore, before he entered the imperial city, he knew that the second prince would try to rope him in. As expected, God Lord Yanlong came tonight. Southern suburbs. Qingyang Villa. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, "The second prince chose a villa outside the city? I am afraid this is not a good banquet." Celestial Lord Yanlong looked solemn and quickly explained, "You've misunderstood. My lord is thirsty for talents and has long noticed young master's talent. He wants to make friends with you. Now that the young master has come to the capital city, as the host, the master must take advantage of this opportunity to entertain you with a banquet. Don't worry, young master. Master is inviting you to be a guest with great sincerity. He definitely has no ill intentions." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right, wait here for a moment." Seeing that he had agreed to attend the banquet, Lord Yanlong was secretly relieved. He quickly bowed and said, "I will be waiting for you here." Ji Tianqing turned to look at Wuxia and said gently, "Wuxia, father has to go out of the city and can't accompany you. You must be tired tonight, go back to Changfeng Courtyard and have a rest." Ji Wuxia also understood that it was inconvenient for her father to take care of important matters outside the city. Therefore, she nodded obediently and said, "Father, people's hearts are sinister and the environment is complicated. You have to be careful." Ji Tianqing touched her head and said with a smile, "Well, father will be fine. Rest assured, father will be back soon." After that, he looked at Zhenhong and said, "Zhenhong, accompany Wuxia back to the residence to rest. You have to guard her at all times. There must be no accidents." Zhenhong nodded without hesitation and said solemnly, "Rest assured, young master." Changfeng courtyard is heavily guarded. There will be no accidents. Ji Tianqing did not say anything more and waved them away. He watched Zhen Hong and Wushuang enter Changfeng courtyard, then walked to Celestial Lord Yan Long with the white dragon. Celestial Lord Yan Long bowed and made a gesture of invitation. Ji Tianqing and the white dragon boarded the gorgeous carriage, followed by Celestial Lord Yan Long. After the three of them entered the carriage and sat down, the coachman drove the four mythical beasts and left Changfeng courtyard. This luxurious and reserved carriage sped through the night and soon arrived at the West City Gate. After leaving the capital, the carriage flew into the night sky and went straight to the western suburbs. Qingyang Courtyard was one of the properties under the second prince's name. This beautiful, secluded, and elegant residence was located on Mount Qingyang, 9,000 miles away from the imperial capital. The courtyard covered an area of thousands of acres. It was beautifully and elegantly built. It had a simple and elegant temperament. Usually, the second prince rarely came here. He would only come here to entertain important guests or to secretly discuss important matters or to meet someone. The courtyard was covered by a powerful divine formation and was guarded by hundreds of guards. The degree of security was no less than the Changfeng courtyard of the third prince. Just a quarter of an hour later, the carriage arrived at the gate of Qingyang courtyard. Celestial Lord Yan Long took Ji Tianqing and the white dragon into Qingyang courtyard. The three of them passed through two courtyards and a garden. They arrived at the third courtyard and walked toward the splendid guest hall. Along the way, Ji Tianqing and the white dragon secretly observed the layout of the courtyard and the distribution of the defenses. Bai Long quietly reminded Ji Tianqing through telepathy, "Master, this courtyard is heavily guarded, and there are divine formations everywhere. If the second prince has evil intentions, I'm afraid we will be in danger. It will be very troublesome." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "The second prince is not stupid. He is not an impulsive person. He knows better than anyone that he can't do anything to me at this juncture. Moreover, I have already checked. There are no large numbers of experts in the courtyard. It should be safe." The white dragon felt relieved after hearing this. Soon, the three of them stepped into the guest hall. As soon as they entered the brightly lit hall, Ji Tianqing saw a large table in the middle of the hall. It was filled with delicious food and wine. More than a dozen young and beautiful maids were standing respectfully in attendance. The second prince, who was wearing a golden robe, was sitting on the main seat and waiting patiently. Celestial Lord Yan Long walked toward the second prince and reported, "Master, young Master Tianqing is here." The second prince immediately stood up and looked at Ji Tianqing with a smile. He cupped his hands and bowed, "I have heard of young Master Tianqing's name and deeds. I admire you. To be honest, I have been friends with you for a long time. To be able to invite young Master here as a guest tonight, this prince is truly fortunate." The second prince laughed heartily and walked toward Ji Tianqing with open arms. He wanted to give him a warm hug. His forthrightness and enthusiasm were a bit too much. Ji Tianqing frowned but did not show it on his face. He was 10 steps away from the second prince. He cupped his hands and bowed, "Greetings, Your Highness. It is my honor to be invited by the second prince." He politely refused the second prince's hug and enthusiasm. The second prince knew what was going on. Disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he did not show any embarrassment on his face. He retracted his arms without leaving a trace and pulled Ji Tianqing's sleeves instead, inviting him to take a seat in the guest seat. "Good wine and food have been prepared. Young master, please take a seat. Let's drink a few cups." As he spoke, the second prince picked up the wine pot and personally poured wine for Ji Tianqing. Chapter 30:12. The second prince held Ji Tianqing's hand and drank to his heart's content. 12 young and beautiful maids were waiting on the two of them respectfully. There were also a few musicians playing beautiful music, and a dozen or so enchanting dancers dancing gracefully in the hall. The second prince had put a lot of effort into this banquet to entertain Ji Tianqing. On the surface, he and Ji Tianqing seemed to be enjoying themselves. But the second prince's excessive enthusiasm made Ji Tianqing and the white dragon wary. Bai Long had been standing behind Ji Tianqing, acting as his bodyguard. Just like Lord Yen Long, he stood behind the second prince. But the difference was that the white dragon was expressionless and silent. Lord Yen Long smiled and occasionally added a few words to liven up the atmosphere, flattering and winning over Ji Tianqing on behalf of the second prince. The banquet lasted for almost 2 hours. During this time, the second prince was quite enthusiastic about Ji Tianqing, as if he regretted not having met him sooner. At the same time, he also hinted at his intentions. He wanted to drive a wedge between Ji Tianqing and the third prince. He offered more attractive terms to win over Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing rejected him without any hesitation. The second prince did not feel awkward. After easing the atmosphere, he continued to win over Ji Tianqing. After all, the second prince was prepared that Ji Tianqing would not be loyal to him. He was just testing him and did not have much hope. His main purpose was to cooperate with Ji Tianqing and force the third prince to work with him through Ji Tianqing. However, after the second prince expressed his intention, Ji Tianqing was still indifferent. There was neither a promise nor a clear rejection. He just said that he did not care about the affairs of the divine nation and did not want to get involved in the feuds and struggles of the royal family. Moreover, he only wanted freedom and peace. He could only represent his own position and could not make decisions for the third prince. After the second prince understood his position, he became more disappointed. 2 hours later, the banquet ended. What the second prince wanted to say and what he wanted to express had been expressed clearly and completely. Ji Tianqing also gave a corresponding answer. He wasn't loyal to anyone, nor did he have any ambitions, so he didn't need to work with anyone. On the surface, both parties were still enjoying themselves. But the secret confrontation was over, and the result was not satisfactory to the second prince. The atmosphere between them was somewhat cold, and they parted on bad terms. Ji Tianqing stood up and said goodbye without changing his expression. He thanked the second prince for his hospitality. The second prince got up to see him off and warmly urged Ji Tianqing to stay. He also invited him to visit the prince's mansion next time. Ji Tianqing clearly refused. This caused the second prince to feel even more disappointed, and a faint trace of anger appeared in his heart. But he didn't show it. He asked Yen Long to send Ji Tianqing away. Lord Yen Long sent Ji Tianqing and the white dragon to the gate of the courtyard. After both parties bid farewell to each other, Ji Tianqing and the white dragon took to the night sky and flew towards the western gate of the royal capital. Yen Long watched as the two figures disappeared into the darkness. He quickly turned around and entered the courtyard. On the way back to the royal capital, the white dragon sent a message to Ji Tianqing, "Master, the king wants to make the fifth prince the crown prince. The second prince is obviously anxious. He wants to work with the third prince to deal with the fifth prince through you. But you rejected him. Don't you think he would fly into a rage out of humiliation and deal with you?" Ji Tianqing's expression was calm as he said with certainty, "Of course not. His biggest wish and goal is to become the crown prince. Now he is busy dealing with the fifth prince. How can he spare the energy to deal with me?" Just as he finished this sentence, in the night sky 10 miles ahead, a few dazzling blood-red sword lights suddenly lit up and attacked like lightning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. There were a total of 9 blood-red sword lights. 7 of them attacked Ji Tianqing, and only 2 pierced the white dragon. The sword lights were extremely sharp and contained a violent killing sword essence. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned. He raised his hand as fast as lightning, and the sword lights filled the sky. Bang bang bang. Dozens of dazzling golden sword lights collided with the blood-red sword lights, and there was a loud dull sound. The 9 blood-red sword lights were all blocked and shattered. The white dragon frowned and sneered, "Damn. We just left the Chengyang courtyard and walked 3,000 miles before we were ambushed. If this is not the second prince, who else can it be?" Ji Tianqing's face was cold as well. He said coldly, "If this is really his doing, then I have overestimated him." As his voice fell, a figure appeared in the night sky ahead. It was a burly old man in a purple robe and a bronze mask. His purple hair fluttered in the wind, and he exuded a domineering aura. Although Ji Tianqing could not see the person's face, he could sense that the purple-robed old man was a high-level divine lord, and his strength had surpassed the 7th degree. At this moment, 2 figures appeared in the night sky on both sides. The figure on the left was a skinny divine clan member in a black robe, and he wore a skull mask. The one on the right was a man as strong as an iron tower. He wore dark golden armor and held 2 large sabers. These 2 were also high-level divine lords, and they both had the strength of the 7th degree. A total of 3 divine lords surrounded Ji Tianqing and the white dragon, and they were filled with a strong murderous aura. The white dragon looked around and sneered, "This place is less than 3,000 miles from the royal city. How dare you set up an ambush here? How audacious! Tell me, who is the master behind you? Is it the second prince?" The divine lords on both sides did not speak. The purple-robed old man, who was the strongest, said in a hoarse voice, "People who are bound to die do not need to know the truth." This answer seemed to agree with the white dragon's words. The white dragon was about to ask when the purple-robed old man had already attacked. He waved a blood-red sword and slashed out sword lights. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Hundreds of violent and sharp sword lights sealed off the area, drowning Ji Tianqing in the white dragon's figures. The white dragon only had the strength of the celestial god realm and had not reached the divine lord realm. He absolutely could not withstand the attack of a high-level divine lord. Once he was hit by the sword lights, he would definitely be smashed into pieces. In fact, even his godhood was on the verge of collapse. Under the crisis, Ji Tianqing immediately took out the Burial of Heaven sword and executed a counterattack. He struck out the dragon elephant divine fist with his left hand, and his right hand brandished sword lights that covered the sky, blocking the purple-robed old man's attack. Bam 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 bam. The sword lights that filled the sky collided and exploded with a deafening sound. Hundreds of sword lights and phantoms of dragons and elephants all collapsed into fragments that filled the sky, and a shocking hurricane blew up. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the divine lords on both sides also attacked. The 2 of them executed their ultimate skills, slashing out countless sword lights and thousands of blood waves and hundreds of beast phantoms. Ji Tianqing was exhausted from blocking. In a moment of carelessness, he failed to protect the white dragon. A blood-red sword light took advantage of the situation and slashed the white dragon. Bam! With a muffled explosion, his entire right arm was cut off, and blood splattered. The white dragon let out a painful groan, and his face instantly turned pale. Ji Tianqing hurriedly opened the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda and kept the white dragon inside, letting him circulate his energy to heal his injuries. Chapter 30:13. Bai Long could not take part in the battle between the upper-level Sir Gods. After he entered the God Pagoda, Ji Tianqing felt more at ease. Even though he was facing off against 3 Sir God experts alone and was surrounded from beginning to end, he did not need to worry about Bai Long's safety and divert his attention to protect him. In this way, he could unleash a stronger battle power and temporarily block off the attacks of the 3 Sir Gods. The 3 Sir Gods were also determined to kill. They wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. Because they knew that this place was not far from Sun-bearing Courtyard and Royal City. If they could not kill Ji Tianqing in half an hour, many experts would be alerted to investigate the situation. By then, it would be difficult for them to kill Ji Tianqing. Therefore, the three Sur gods did not say a word and attacked with all their might. They originally thought that there would be two 7th-degree realm god monarchs and an 8th-degree realm god monarch. Killing Ji Tianqing would be a piece of cake. But the three of them did not expect Ji Tianqing to be so tenacious and use all kinds of ultimate skills to block off their attacks. Even though Ji Tianqing had been injured after exchanging 30 moves, Ji Tianqing had been injured. As time passed, the three Sur gods became more anxious and their attacks became more ferocious. They did not hesitate to get injured so that they could kill Ji Tianqing as soon as possible. Even so, Ji Tianqing still held on until the end. He used Heavenly Dragon Tyrant Body and turned into a 100 feet tall golden armored god of war. His battle power increased by 6 times. The fierce attacks of the two 7th-degree Sur gods were blocked by his Sword Dao divine ability. As for the 8th-degree realm purple-robed elderly's ultimate skill, he used various secret skills to neutralize more than half of its power. Even if he was hit by the purple-robed elderly, he only suffered some light injuries. Soon, 100 breaths time passed. Both parties had already exchanged more than 200 moves and the aftermath of the battle destroyed the surrounding 500 miles of mountain range. The surroundings turned into ruins and the heaven and earth was filled with thick smoke and dust. Dull loud sounds reverberated in the night sky and dazzling divine light kept flashing. Ji Tianqing, who was 100 feet tall and was covered in golden light, also suffered more than 10 injuries. To the three Sur gods, this progress was simply too slow. It would take at least 2 hours to kill Ji Tianqing. This progress was simply too slow. Thus, the two 7th-level divine lords continued their fierce attacks, restraining Ji Tianqing and not allowing him to escape. The purple-robed old man began to accumulate power. He did not hesitate to burn all of his qi and blood, forcibly increasing his battle prowess by 2 times. 10 breaths later, the accumulation of power was complete. The qi and blood in his body ignited, and his whole body flashed with a bloody light. His aura also became extremely violent. Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword. The purple-robed elder held the sword with both hands, and like a blood-red whirlpool, he madly devoured the divine power within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. His battle intent and aura rose crazily, reaching an extremely terrifying level. When his aura reached its peak, he held the divine sword with both hands and slashed at Ji Tianqing with all his might. This sword was the pinnacle of his skills. Its might was extremely powerful, and it gathered the divine power of heaven and earth for tens of thousands of miles, ruthlessly suppressing Ji Tianqing. Everything within a radius of 150 miles was locked down, making it impossible for Ji Tianqing to escape or dodge. Once this sword was unleashed, it was like a bolt of lightning cutting through the night sky, illuminating a radius of thousands of miles. Ji Tianqing felt immense pressure, and even the chill of death. The purple-robed elder's killer move was enough to threaten his life. At this critical moment, he could only ignore the two Sur gods beside him and take their attacks head-on. He had to use all his strength to resolve the purple-robed elder's killer move. Daylight Sword. Ji Tianqing roared angrily, holding the burial of heaven with both hands, his expression extremely solemn. His movements seemed to be slow as he stabbed at the purple-robed elder. Suddenly, endless divine power surged out of his body, and after being amplified by the burial of heaven, it formed a circle of dazzling golden divine light. That huge dazzling golden halo was like a scorching sun, carrying an extremely heavy and majestic power as it ruthlessly blasted at the Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword. This sword was also Ji Tianqing's pinnacle killer move. It was a move that he had unleashed 120% of his power and was fully focused on. Boom! Crack! At the next moment, the Daylight Sword and the Heavenly Frenzy Extermination Sword clashed fiercely, giving off a deafening sound. The blood-red giant sword, which was thousands of feet long, slashed the golden halo ruthlessly. The two of them were in a stalemate in the night sky, their powers suddenly exploded and quickly cancelled each other out. Merely 2 breaths later, the blood-red giant sword and the golden halo collapsed at the same time, turning into millions of fragments, scattering in the night sky. Destructive shockwaves spread out in all directions, covering a radius of several thousand miles. The surrounding mountains and forests within 1,000 miles were shattered by the shockwave, turning into desolated ruins. The purple-robed elder was safe and sound, but he was pushed back 100 steps. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, was so shaken that he staggered and fell from the night sky into the ruins, smashing a deep hole in the ruins. After all, not only was he injured by the power of the heavenly frenzy extermination sword, he was also hit by the two Sir God's divine skills. There were a few more wounds on his back and shoulders, and golden blood splattered out. As for the two 7th-degree Sir Gods, they were also hit by the shock wave, spitting out blood as they were sent flying thousands of feet away. Both of them suffered internal injuries from the shock, their breaths were in a mess and their battle powers were weakened. They fell into the ruins, smashing 2 deep holes in the ground, creating a wide crack, sending smoke and dust into the sky. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a sharp cold glint as he thought to himself, these two are injured and their divine power is unstable, so there are gaps in their defense. Previously during this period of time, I have been secretly poisoning them. But they are very vigilant and the strong poison has not been able to invade their bodies. Now that they are injured, the strong poison has a chance to take advantage of them. They are finished. From the start of the battle, Ji Tianqing had been secretly executing the strong poison law. He was very clear that the 3 of them were all upper Sir Gods, with strong abilities and rich battle experience. It was very difficult to use ordinary strong poison, so only those kind of strong poison which was hidden and subtle could succeed. And this kind of strong poison required a very long time before it could succeed. He originally thought that he would need to delay for at least 15 minutes before the 2 Sir Gods were corroded by the strong poison. By then, he would have a chance to turn the tables. But he did not expect that in order to kill him as soon as possible, the 2 Sir Gods did not care about their own safety and attacked him with all their might. This resulted in the shock wave from the clash between him and the purple-robed elder injuring the 2 Sir Gods. The strong poison took advantage of the gap and the 2 Sir Gods were immediately corroded by the strong poison. Their arms and faces were dyed with a layer of blue. Following that, the strong poison wreaked havoc in their bodies, rapidly corroding their meridians and blood vessels, and spreading to their brains. Once the strong poison invaded their divine spark, the 2 Sir Gods' consciousness would become blurry and they would gradually fall into a coma. If they were not treated and expelled in time, their lives would be in danger. The 2 Sir Gods had just climbed up from the ruins and were about to fly up into the night sky to continue attacking Ji Tianqing when they spat out blood arrows at the same time. Sensing that something was amiss and that they had been poisoned, the 2 Sir Gods' expressions changed drastically. Chapter 30:14. Damn it, how did I get poisoned? Damn it, I've also been poisoned. My bloodline has been corroded. The 2 Sir God realm experts exchanged looks. They were so frightened that they screamed angrily. Immediately, they felt a stabbing pain all over their bodies, as if they were being cut by knives. Their internal organs were also burning with pain, as if they were being burned. The unbearable pain made them tremble all over, and their teeth creaked as they gritted their teeth. We already knew that the little bastard was good at using poison, so we were very cautious. But we didn't expect that we would still fall into his trap. The 2 divine lords didn't dare to delay and stopped attacking Ji Tianqing. They hurriedly circulated their energy to expel the poison. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing ignored his injuries and charged over with the burial of heaven. He wanted to quickly kill the 2 divine lords while they were poisoned. Only then could he focus on dealing with the purple-robed elder. Unfortunately, Ji Tianqing was stopped by the purple-robed elder just as he flew out with his sword. The purple-robed elder also realized that the 2 divine lords were poisoned and couldn't fight for the time being. Ji Tianqing wanted to take the opportunity to kill, so he could only block him. Swish! Swish! The purple-robed elder swung his divine sword with all his strength, sending out sword beams that covered the sky and enveloped Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was stopped, so he could only give up on the two divine lords and use all his strength to block the purple-robed elder's attack. Clang! 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 The purple-robed elder was indeed stronger. Ji Tianqing used all his strength to block and counterattack, but he couldn't get rid of his opponent. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the two Sir Gods who were poisoned hurriedly consumed divine elixirs to heal their wounds. But the poison that Ji Tianqing had deliberately released was too overbearing. Even if they consumed detoxification pills and circulated their divine power to expel the poison, they still couldn't get rid of it. The two Sir Gods were so worried that their hearts were burning with anxiety and fear. Cold sweat broke out all over their bodies. At this time, the purple-robed old man's divine sense detected a divine light shining from the west gate of the capital city. There were a few Sir Gods leading dozens of experts rushing over at lightning speed. Damn it, as expected, after dragging it out for too long, we were discovered by the Imperial City's guards. The purple-robed elder frowned and cursed in his heart. At the same time, he released his divine perception towards Qinyang Courtyard. There was no doubt that the vicinity of Qinyang Courtyard had also lit up with divine light. Several auras of divine lord powerhouses were currently rushing over with lightning speed. In the previous 15 minutes, the commotion caused by the fighting was too great. The loud noise spread for thousands of miles, and the divine light shone for thousands of miles. The Imperial Guards of the Qinyang residence and the Imperial capital had only just arrived to check on the situation. Their reactions were already considered slow. Damn it! The purple-robed old man's expression became increasingly unsightly as he cursed hatefully. He knew full well that it was time for them to withdraw. If they couldn't kill Ji Tianqing within 100 breaths of time and cause such a huge commotion, their mission had already failed. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only grit his teeth and make up his mind. He ordered the two Sir Gods, "Don't just stand there, retreat quickly, I will cover you." The two poisoned Sir Gods already had half of their bodies turning blue and were twitching all over. Even if they stayed, they wouldn't be able to fight much and would even become a burden. Hearing the purple-robed old man's order, the two of them turned around without hesitation and flew towards the night sky in the north. They also knew that the situation was urgent and they had to retreat as soon as possible. Even if they were covered in wounds and were poisoned, they endured the pain and increased their speed to the maximum. In less than 10 breaths of time, they had flown over 1,000 miles away. Ji Tianqing was rather anxious. He wanted to stop the two Sir Gods and at least kill one or two of them. He wanted to seize their godheads and refine their divine souls and memories. In this way, he would be able to find out who sent these three Sir Gods. Unfortunately, the purple-robed old man blocked him with all his might, making it impossible for him to withdraw. Soon, another 5 breaths of time passed. The group of Imperial Guards from the Imperial capital was still 2,000 miles away from the battlefield. As for the Sir God experts from the Qinyang side courtyard, they were only 600 miles away from Ji Tianqing and the purple-robed old man. The purple-robed old man saw that the time was up and he couldn't stay any longer. He made a feint at Ji Tianqing and teleported away from the battlefield. Ji Tianqing had already guessed that the purple-robed old man would escape and was prepared to stop him. However, the purple-robed old man was slightly stronger and his teleportation ability had reached perfection. He wanted to stop him, but he was a quarter of an instant too slow and the purple-robed old man escaped. In the next moment, the purple-robed old man teleported 1,000 miles away and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Ji Tianqing didn't chase after him. He stared coldly at the night sky in the north and cursed under his breath. Although he could vaguely guess the identities of the three Sir Gods. However, the current situation in the imperial capital was confusing and he didn't dare to be completely sure. I thought that after reaching the 3rd level of the Sir God realm, I would be able to fight against an 8th level upper level Sir God. I didn't expect to meet such experienced Sir Gods. I'm still a little weak and can only remain undefeated. Ji Tianqing muttered to himself and sighed. He was also eager to break through to the 4th level and become a middle-level Sir God. At this moment, the experts from the Chengyang side courtyard arrived at the battlefield. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 figures flashed with divine light and appeared in front of Ji Tianqing. The leader was the 2nd prince. Behind him was Sir God Yanlong and a burly man in golden armor. The 3 of them were upper-level Sir Gods and had a strong aura. The man in golden armor was also present at the Chengyang side courtyard. However, he didn't participate in the banquet and had been guarding the secret chamber. Ji Tianqing used his divine senses to check the situation in the side courtyard and sensed the aura of this person. After the 3 of them arrived, their gazes gathered on Ji Tianqing and they sized him up. He had already returned to his original appearance. His long hair was messy and his white robe was tattered and stained with blood. Seeing that his life wasn't in danger, the 2nd prince heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Tianqing, what's going on? Who was it that ambushed you here and injured you? The 2nd prince looked at him with concern and asked angrily. Ji Tianqing said calmly, the 3 upper-level Sir Gods all hid their true faces. I don't know their identities or origins. Hearing this, the 2nd prince's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Sir God Yanlong and the man in golden armor were also shocked and in disbelief. They had long known that Ji Tianqing was very strong and comparable to an upper-level Sir God. However, they didn't dare to believe that Ji Tianqing had only suffered light injuries after being ambushed by 3 upper-level Sir Gods and fighting for so long. If it were them, they definitely wouldn't be able to do it. Didn't this mean that Ji Tianqing was one of the best among upper-level Sir Gods and was stronger than the 3 of them? The 3 of them didn't move as this thought flashed through their minds. The 2nd prince was furious and ordered in a deep voice, Yanlong, immediately send someone to investigate this matter. We must find the culprit. Tonight, this prince hosted a banquet at the Chengyang side courtyard in honor of young Master Tianqing. In the end, young Master Tianqing was ambushed the moment he left the Chengyang side courtyard and was injured. If we don't find out the truth, others will think that this prince did it. Chapter 30:15. The 2nd prince's words were very straightforward. Obviously, he was telling Ji Tianqing that this had nothing to do with him. But Ji Tianqing did not know him well enough, so he could not be sure if he was telling the truth. After all, it was normal for a scheming person like the 2nd prince to not be able to tell the truth from the lies. Yanlong cupped his hands and acknowledged the order. He quickly sent a message jade slip to convey the 2nd prince's order. At this moment, the group of experts and masters from the royal city also arrived at the battlefield. The leader was actually the 3rd prince, who was wearing a golden python robe. Beside him were 2 upper-level divine lords wearing golden armor and the insignia of the Imperial Guard. Judging from their strength, attire, and insignia, they should be the commanders of the Imperial Guard. Behind the 3 of them in the night sky, there were more than 60 Imperial Guards wearing silver armor and holding long spears and halberds. All of them were 1st or 2nd level divine lords. If they were among the commoners, they would definitely be powerful. Everyone knew that these dozens of Imperial Guards were the best of the best. The 3rd prince and the others hurriedly arrived at the battlefield. Their eyes were locked on Ji Tianqing as they flew over worriedly. I was wondering who was fighting outside the city and causing such a big commotion. So, it's young Master Tianqing. The 3rd prince recognized Ji Tianqing. Seeing him injured, the 3rd prince was very surprised and shocked. He turned his head and saw the 2nd prince beside Ji Tianqing. He immediately frowned. Why is 2nd brother here too? The third prince was the commander of the imperial guard appointed by the king. He had full authority to command 20,000 imperial guards. Although he was usually quite free and handed the matters of the imperial guard to the commanders, he was still in charge of the imperial guard. But these 2 days were the Lantern Festival, and there were many people in the royal city. It was very easy for accidents to happen. So, he could only personally lead the imperial guard to maintain order and safety in the royal city. Just now, he heard from his subordinates that there was a big commotion outside the western suburbs. After hearing the news, he was filled with anger and rushed over with his trusted generals. He did not expect to see Ji Tianqing and the second prince here. Hearing the third prince's question, the second prince smiled and took the initiative to explain, "Third brother, there is something you don't know. Please listen to my explanation. This prince has long heard of young Master Tianqing's deeds and has long been in awe of him. Tonight, this prince will host a banquet in Qingyang courtyard to entertain him. This can be considered as fulfilling the duties of a host." Who would have thought that young Master Tianqing would encounter an ambush right after he left the courtyard? There were a total of 3 high divine lords on the other side, and they all wanted to kill young Master Tianqing. Fortunately, young Master Tianqing was strong enough to hold on for 7 or 8 minutes under the siege of the other party and only suffered some minor injuries. I heard from my subordinates that there was a big battle here, so I rushed over to check the situation. The second prince did not hide anything and simply told him what had happened. After the third prince heard this, his expression did not change, but in his heart, he was muttering. Doesn't second brother have a deep grudge against young Master Tianqing? Why would they host a banquet for him? Moreover, young Master Tianqing actually agreed. He is not willing to be loyal to this prince and is neither close nor distant to this prince. Yet, he is in contact with second brother. What is he trying to do? At the thought of this, the third prince felt a little worried. However, he did not show it and hurriedly asked Ji Tianqing in concern, "Young Master Tianqing, how are your injuries? Are they serious?" Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, "They're just light injuries, nothing serious." "Third prince, you don't have to worry. That's good." The third prince nodded slightly and said in an indignant tone, "Which bastard actually ordered 3 high divine lords to attack young Master Tianqing? Killing people in public in the outskirts of the capital is simply disregarding the law. They must be caught and beheaded in public." With that, he ordered the golden-armored commander beside him, Commander Mo, bring everyone to check the battlefield and investigate the clues and traces. Commander Mo hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed, acknowledging the order. Then, he brought more than 60 imperial guards with him to investigate the battlefield. There was only one golden-armored commander left beside him. At this time, he looked at the second prince and sneered, "Everyone knows that second brother and young Master Tianqing have a long-standing grudge against each other. I really don't understand why second brother would invite young Master Tianqing to be his guest." Moreover, the banquet was held in the western suburbs outside the capital. Most importantly, right after the banquet ended, young Master Tianqing was only 1,500 kilometers away, and the assassins could not wait to kill him. How can there be such a coincidence in the world? "Second brother, aren't you going to explain?" The third prince's intention was obvious. He was making things difficult for the second prince. Just now, the second prince had driven a wedge between him and Ji Tianqing. Now, he was also trying to drive a wedge between the second prince and Ji Tianqing. This was especially true when he claimed that those 3 high divine lords were assassins. This was already an obvious hint. Everyone knew that the assassins of the Evil Blood Palace called themselves assassins. The second prince had expected that the third prince would point the finger at him. He was not angry. Instead, he spread his hands and looked at Ji Tianqing. He said with a wry smile, "Young Master Tianqing, did you see that? Just now, I said that someone must have misunderstood and thought that it was me who did it. You really didn't let me down." After that, he said to the third prince, "Third brother, this is indeed a coincidence. It's normal for you to suspect me. But this prince can pat his chest and swear that this matter has absolutely nothing to do with this prince. Young Master Tianqing is so elegant and knowledgeable. I drank and talked with him for half the night. I felt like old friends with him at first sight. I regret that I didn't meet him sooner. I can't wait to befriend him. Why would I order assassins to ambush him? The second prince said with certainty. He did not seem to be lying at all. But everyone knew that it was difficult for a shrewd person like him to judge whether he was telling the truth or not. The third prince stared at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, "Second brother, you should know that we won't believe you easily. And I know that you're an expert in making what is false true and what is false false. It's useless for us to argue here. Let's wait for the results of the investigation to come out." The second prince nodded slightly in agreement. He looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, "Young Master Tianqing, what do you think?" Ji Tianqing also nodded and said calmly, "Guessing is useless. We can only confirm the answer with real evidence. Before the truth comes out, you don't have to fight with each other to avoid letting the fisherman profit." The two princes were stunned and they heard the words fishermen reaping the benefits from the fight. They immediately understood Ji Tianqing's meaning. Their eyes lit up and they quickly nodded in agreement. "You've woken us up from our daze. Young Master Tianqing is right. Young Master Tianqing has just experienced danger, but he can still maintain his rationality and calm. It's really admirable. If the result is as young Master guessed, then we have to be careful. We underestimated that little brother before. His scheming and methods are not inferior to ours." The second prince and the third prince were smart people. There was no need for Ji Tianqing to say it. They could guess the answer with just a little hint. Moreover, they had reason to believe that this was very likely the doing of that person. His goal was to drive a wedge between the two princes. He wanted to sow discord between Ji Tianqing and the second prince. Chapter 30:16. The matter of Ji Tianqing being ambushed had more or less taken shape. He and the two princes had a preliminary answer in their hearts. However, they still had to wait for the results of the investigation by the Imperial Guards and Emperor Yanlong. If Yanlong and the commander of the Imperial Guards could find some clues and evidence on the battlefield, that would be great. Time passed quietly. Ji Tianqing and the two princes waited patiently. Unknowingly, a quarter of an hour passed. Emperor Yanlong and the man in golden armor searched the battlefield within a radius of 1,000 miles twice, but found no useful clues. They returned to the second prince to report. Before the second prince could ask, the two of them shook their heads in disappointment. Although they were disappointed, they had expected it. After all, the three divine emperors were all experienced experts. They were very cautious. How could they leave important clues and traces? Just then. Suddenly, a beam of light flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. After the spiritual light dissipated, a golden jade slip appeared. There was a special imprint on it. Seeing the mark on the jade slip, Ji Tianqing's eyebrows twitched. He had a bad feeling. The two princes also stared at the jade slip with different expressions. The third prince recognized the mark. He frowned and murmured, "Message jade slip from Lai Fu. Did something happen in the Changfeng courtyard?" Ji Tianqing did not say anything. He quickly picked up the message jade slip and read the content with his divine sense. Lai Fu's old voice immediately sounded in his mind. "Young Master Tianqing. Something big happened. An expert sneaked into the Changfeng courtyard, injured Zhenhong, and kidnapped the young master." Lai Fu's tone was very anxious and worried. He was panting. Apparently, he had just finished a battle. Ji Tianqing's body immediately stiffened. His face changed dramatically, and his eyes became gloomy like ice. Anger and killing intent suddenly surged out of his body. His eyes were dyed with a layer of blood. "You are courting death." The two words burst out of his throat. It was like piercing ice, and also like a sharp blade that could kill people. The two princes both felt an immense pressure, as well as a terrifying killing intent that shook the heavens. The two of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. However, they all knew very well that Ji Tianqing was truly enraged and was about to start a massacre. That's strange. He was attacked by 3 divine monarchs and was badly injured. Yet, he was still able to remain calm and rational. What exactly happened to make him so angry? The two princes were puzzled. Without saying a word, Ji Tianqing put away the golden jade slip and turned to leave at lightning speed, heading straight for the west gate of the royal city. "Young Master Tianqing, what happened?" The second prince raised his hand, wanting to ask Ji Tianqing to stay and ask him about the situation. However, Ji Tianqing ignored him. His figure flickered a few times and disappeared into the darkness. The third prince also turned and left without hesitation, chasing after Ji Tianqing to the west gate of the royal city. At the same time, he also sent a voice transmission to the 2 commanders of the imperial army and ordered, "Go to the Changfeng courtyard immediately, something big has happened." The 2 commanders of the imperial guards received the order and quickly gathered the imperial guards who were investigating the battlefield and rushed to the Changfeng courtyard at the fastest speed. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing returned to the Changfeng courtyard. Lai Fu, with messy hair and sweaty forehead, was waiting in the courtyard of the East Wing, anxiously pacing back and forth. The East Wing was Wushuang's residence. At this time, there were more than 50 guards guarding the small courtyard, and no one was allowed to come close. When Ji Tianqing teleported back and appeared in the small courtyard, Lai Fu breathed a sigh of relief as if relieved of a heavy burden. He hurried to greet him and saluted, "Young master, you're finally back." Ji Tianqing's face and aura were frighteningly gloomy. He did not waste time and ignored Lai Fu. He directly released his divine sense to cover the entire Changfeng courtyard and carefully explore. He saw that the East Wing, which covered an area of 100 feet, had become dilapidated. More than a dozen houses had collapsed, and many broken fences and walls were exposed in the ruins. There were also several ravines in the small courtyard, and the defensive formation had long been broken. Obviously, there had been a fierce battle here. Although the destructive power was very strong, the two sides fought for a very short time. Based on this, Ji Tianqing was able to deduce that after the assassins sneaked into the East Wing, they defeated Zhen Hong in a few moves and took Wushuang away. At this time, the third prince also rushed back and landed in the small courtyard. Lai Fu hurried to greet him and respectfully bowed. "My lord, why are you here?" The third prince did not answer. His face was very serious, and his heart was heavy. After all, the Changfeng courtyard was his property. Ji Tianqing's family had an accident here, and he could not absolve himself from the blame. If he did not handle it well, it was likely to cause Ji Tianqing to break with him. Therefore, he must treat it seriously. While exploring the small courtyard with his divine sense, he asked Lai Fu, "What happened?" Lai Fu did not dare to be long-winded, and answered concisely, "Tonight, the young master is resting in the bedroom, and Zhen Hong is guarding outside the door. A quarter of an hour ago, 2 assassins sneaked into the courtyard and took the young master." It happened so suddenly that Zhen Hong was attacked as soon as he realized that something was wrong. She only resisted 2 moves and was seriously injured by the assassins. She could only watch the other person take the young master away. When I heard the fighting, I immediately came to check the situation. At that time, the 2 assassins had already escaped with the young master. Zhen Hong was seriously injured, and I wanted to heal her. But she refused. She said that she must not disappoint young Master Tianqing's trust. Even if she had to exchange her life for it, she must save the young master. When he heard this, the third prince had already understood the general idea. He frowned and asked, "So, Zhenhong went to chase the two assassins?" Lai Fu nodded and said, "Yes. I was afraid that Zhenhong's injury was too serious and she could not hold on, so I let the two guard captains go with her. Then, I sent a message to young Master Tianqing and reported the news." As soon as his voice fell, Ji Tianqing had finished his investigation. He stared at Lai Fu and asked, "In which direction did they escape?" Lai Fu was startled for a moment. He pointed to the direction of the North City and said, "They went north. They have already left Yunwu City." Without saying a word, Ji Tianqing directly teleported away from Changfeng Courtyard and rushed toward the North City gate. The third prince told Lai Fu and quickly followed Ji Tianqing to the north. "After old Mo and old Su come, let them take people to the north to chase." Lai Fu certainly knew that old Mo and old Su were the two most valued imperial guards under the third prince's command. He couldn't help but be startled for a moment and murmured in confusion, "The two commanders took the imperial guards and followed the lord? What happened before? Didn't young Master Tianqing go to the banquet? How could the lord and young Master Tianqing be together?" Before he could figure it out, the two commanders of the imperial guards took more than 60 imperial guards and flew into the Changfeng Courtyard like a tide. Lai Fu did not dare to delay and quickly transmitted the third prince's order to the two commanders. The two commanders received the order and quickly left Changfeng Courtyard with the imperial guards and rushed to the north. Yunwu City was destined to be turbulent tonight. Wushuang was Ji Tianqing's reverse scale. After tonight, there would be a monstrous massacre. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 30:17. Ji Tianqing thought that even if the other party was sinister and cunning, they would not break into the Changfeng Courtyard. In Yunwu City, they had to be more restrained. After all, everyone in Yunwu City knew that it was the third prince's courtyard. Once the other party sent people to the Changfeng Courtyard, it was equivalent to openly declaring war on the third prince. Therefore, when he went to the banquet in the Qingyang Courtyard, it was inconvenient to take Wushuang with him, so he let her rest in the Changfeng Courtyard. He was a bit worried, so he had Zhenhong stay close to Wushuang to protect her. But he underestimated the other party's madness. In order to take revenge on him, they sent experts to break into the Changfeng Courtyard and forcibly took Wushuang away. This undoubtedly showed that the other party was determined to kill him by hook or by crook. Originally, all forces in Yunwu City had to keep a low profile and abide by the basic rules of the game. Since the other party broke the rules, Ji Tianqing had nothing to worry about. Kill. Kill everyone on the other side, regardless of their strength or identity. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing left Yunwu City and flew 50,000 miles to the north. He was worried, so he flew at an extremely fast speed. The third prince, 2 imperial army commanders, and dozens of imperial army elites could not keep up with him. When he flew over a vast mountain range, Ji Tianqing's divine sense detected 2 auras of divine emperors on a mountain peak 3,000 miles to the left. He released his divine sense to investigate carefully and found that the 2 auras were the guard captains of the Changfeng Courtyard. In addition, there was another person on the mountain peak. It was Sir God Zhenhong, who was seriously injured and had a weak aura. Swish! Ji Tianqing quickly flew over and landed next to Sir God Zhenhong. Zhenhong was lying on the grass, unconscious. Her red hair was disheveled and stained with blood, covering half of her face. She looked extremely embarrassed, and the long dress she was wearing was torn in many places, revealing several wounds. Her left shoulder was twisted, and the broken bone was exposed in the wound, dripping with blood. Especially in her chest and abdomen, there was a bull-sized bloody hole, which was still bleeding. It was a shocking sight. Obviously, she was seriously injured and had fainted. The 2 bodyguard captains were guarding her, as anxious as ants on a hot pan. One of them helped her channel divine power to suppress her injuries. Another person fed her a divine pill and performed a healing technique to help her stop the bleeding. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had arrived, the two captains heaved a sigh of relief. He raised his head to greet Ji Tianqing, then lowered his head to continue working. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice, "Get out of the way." The strength of the two guard captains was slightly lower, and their treatment methods were very mediocre. Knowing that Ji Tianqing was going to save Zhenhong, the two of them hurriedly retreated. Inside the heaven-mending orb, there were still thousands of life-saving divine lights that could revive thousands of martial gods. However, Zhenhong was a divine lord powerhouse. Ji Tianqing could only release all of his life-saving divine light and pour it into her body. As he extended his palms, he activated the power of the heaven-mending orb. A dense sacred white light gushed out of his palm and enveloped Zhenhong, who was seriously injured and unconscious. Soon, thousands of life-saving divine lights were injected into her body. Under the watchful eyes of the two guard captains, the wounds on Zhenhong's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The blood stopped flowing, and the wounds healed quickly. Even her divine power was recovering quickly. Her originally weak and chaotic divine soul aura also gradually stabilized. After a few breaths, Zhenhong was out of danger. After 100 breaths, the wounds all over her body healed, and her injuries were greatly reduced. When the two guard captains saw this scene, they were so shocked that they were dumbfounded. They couldn't help but exclaim in surprise and disbelief. At this moment, the third prince, the two guard captains, and more than 60 elite guards arrived at the mountain peak. Seeing Zhenhong unconscious on the ground, the third prince quickly asked about her situation. After learning that she was seriously injured and unconscious, and that Ji Tianqing had healed her, the third prince felt slightly relieved. Soon, Zhenhong slowly woke up. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Ji Tianqing, the third prince, the two guard captains, and the two guard captains surrounding her. Everyone looked at her with a dignified expression, their eyes full of concern. She quickly got up and was about to salute everyone. The third prince raised his hand to stop her and asked anxiously, "Zhenhong, you tracked the murderer here and fell unconscious? What about the murderer? Which direction did he escape in?" At the mention of this matter, Zhenhong's eyes dimmed, and an expression of extreme self-blame appeared on her face. She said guiltily, "My lord, young Master Tianqing, I'm sorry. Zhenhong is useless. I failed to live up to your trust and failed to protect the young lord." Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Let's talk about this later. Tell me first, where did the murderer escape to? Do you have any clues?" Zhenhong felt even more ashamed and lowered her head even more. The murderer. Zhenhong is useless. I couldn't catch up with the murderer and was left further and further behind. They escaped to the north. Before I fell unconscious, I could still track their aura. Now that I've been left behind, I can't detect their residual aura. Obviously, they had lost track of them. Ji Tianqing was full of unwillingness and continued to ask, "Then did you see clearly what the two murderers looked like? Did they have any special characteristics?" Zhenhong thought seriously for a moment and shook her head with even more self-blame. "They should be two men, but I'm not sure if they're young or middle-aged. They were both wearing black robes and masks that covered their original faces. I couldn't see any markings or special characteristics." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing, the third prince, and the others looked even more disappointed. Zhenhong was the best witness and the most crucial clue about the two murderers. But now, the clue was broken. No matter how anxious Ji Tianqing was, he couldn't find the murderer's whereabouts. The third prince also understood this and hurriedly persuaded Ji Tianqing, "Young Master Tianqing, don't be too anxious. You must calm down at this time. The clue is broken. Why don't we go back to Royal City first and discuss countermeasures?" After a pause, he also said with self-blame, "I'm also deeply sorry and angry that such a thing happened. Damn the murderers, they broke into the Longwind courtyard and kidnapped Wuxia. This is a public declaration of war against me. The other party not only wants to take revenge on you, but also wants to sow discord between us. Young Master Tianqing, please rest assured that I also have an unshirkable responsibility for this matter. I will definitely help you save Wuxia. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a deep voice, although the clue is broken, I'm still not reconciled. Let's continue to look for clues around. After that, he left the mountain peak and flew north, carefully investigating the situation along the way. The third prince also quickly followed with the commander of the imperial army. Everyone spread out and flew across the night sky at a moderate speed, carefully searching a radius of 20,000 miles. In this area, no trace or clue could be hidden from everyone. But unfortunately, after searching for an hour and tens of thousands of miles, they didn't find any useful clues. In desperation, Ji Tianqing and the third prince could only leave and return to Royal City to make a long-term plan. Chapter 30:18. Ji Tianqing had been very anxious since Wuxuang's accident. But at such a critical moment, he had to remain calm. Anger and irritation could not solve the problem, the most important thing was to think of a countermeasure. On the way back to the capital, Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered. As soon as they returned to the Changfeng court, Ji Tianqing and the third prince entered the study to discuss countermeasures. Two commanders of the imperial army followed them in, waiting for orders. Originally, the third prince wanted Zhen Hong to rest and heal. But she refused to rest and forced herself to enter the study to participate in the discussion. Wuxuang's kidnapping made her feel very guilty and self-reproachful. At the same time, she felt that she had failed Ji Tianqing's trust and could not face Ji Tianqing. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing did not reprimand her. The secret room was dimly lit and the atmosphere was solemn and austere. The third prince said in a low voice, "Two things happened tonight. First, the second prince invited Mr. Tianqing to the Qingyang court as a guest, but they were ambushed on the way back. Immediately after, two divine monarchs invaded the Longwind court, injured Zhen Hong, and kidnapped young Miss Wuxuang. This prince dares to conclude that these two matters are connected, and the other party has long planned this. Inviting Mr. Tianqing to the Qingyang court was the first step of the plan, luring the tiger away from the mountain. Sending people to infiltrate the Changfeng court and kidnap Miss Wuxuang was the second step of the plan." Hearing this, Ji Tianqing shook his head and said, "You mean, the main culprit is the second prince?" The third prince said calmly, "I can't rule out this possibility. I don't dare to underestimate him at any time. Moreover, he has the motive and the ability to plan such a scheme." Ji Tianqing shook his head again and said, "You're wrong. The king wants to appoint the fifth prince as the crown prince. You and the second prince have both lost. The fifth prince is the biggest winner. At this critical moment, your and the second prince's common enemy is the fifth prince. In order to fight for the position of crown prince and the king, the second prince has planned for so many years. At this juncture, he can't even cooperate with you, so how can he deal with me and kidnap my daughter? Is it more important to kill me? Or is it more important to seize the crown prince's position?" The third prince immediately understood what he meant and said in a serious tone, "The second prince invited you to the banquet tonight because he wants you to persuade me to cooperate with him. Do you mean that the fifth prince is the mastermind?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing said in a firm tone, "I don't know what methods he used to make the monarch make him the crown prince. This was the decree of the monarch. As long as the monarch didn't pass away, it was basically a done deal. Therefore, the fifth prince had already won and would soon become the crown prince. At this time, what he wants to do the most is to take revenge and get rid of me, the thorn in his side." The third prince nodded in agreement. "That makes sense." Ji Tianqing continued, "Besides, you, the second prince, and I all underestimated the fifth prince. He must have planted spies in Changfeng court to monitor our every move. Therefore, he knew that my daughter was in Changfeng courtyard and that I went to Qinyang courtyard to attend the banquet. This is an excellent opportunity for him, how could he let it go? Listening to his analysis, the third prince suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly. Yes. That was most likely the case. The fifth prince sent people to kill you. If the operation succeeded, he could frame the second prince, causing me and the second prince to turn against each other, and there would be no possibility of cooperation. If the plan failed, the fifth prince would send 2 other monarchs to sneak into Changfeng courtyard to kidnap Miss Wushuang. In this way, they could use Miss Wushuang as a hostage to take the initiative and then find a way to deal with you. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "That's right. This is the fifth prince's plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And it's one step after another, interlinked. His goal is to get rid of me. Before he kills me, Wushuang should be safe. Let's wait. It won't be long before they carry out the third step of the plan." The third prince nodded again and said in a dignified tone, "Next, he will send someone to send you a message, asking you to go to a certain place to see Miss Wushuang. And that place, he has already set up a large number of troops and set up an inescapable net. If you don't want anything to happen to Miss Wushuang, you must go to that place and walk into the net." Speaking of this, he sneered and said, "Then we will wait for his message. I will gather a large number of imperial guards and see what tricks he can play." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and asked, "Nominally, the imperial guards are the sword of the monarch. You used a large number of imperial guards to help me deal with my private affairs. Aren't you afraid that he will complain and the monarch will punish you in anger?" The third prince sneered and said, "The monarch is about to appoint the fifth prince as the crown prince. I have already lost all my previous efforts. What is there to be afraid of? Besides, the fifth prince sent people to Changfeng courtyard to kidnap Miss Wushuang. This is not just a public slap in my face. This is simply, pressing my face to the ground and stepping on it. He's already so deranged and lawless. Why should I care about feelings?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "You are willing to help, which proves that I did not misjudge you. But you still underestimate the fifth prince. He will not let us do as we wish. Then I have to think about how to do it secretly and hide from his eyes and ears." The third prince understood what he meant and nodded with a dignified expression. Time quietly passed by. Soon, an hour had passed. It was dawn, the darkest time of the day. At this time, a messenger guard came to the door of the study and reported respectfully, "My lord, someone just sent a secret letter to young Master Tianheng to personally read." The eyes of Ji Tianqing, the third prince, and the others flickered as they gathered their focus. "It's here. Sure enough, it's as we expected." The guard entered the study and handed the letter to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing picked up the letter, pulled out the letter paper and spread it on the desk. There were 2 lines of bold and powerful words written on the letter paper. 7 in the morning, West Wind Town in the north. If you don't want your daughter to lose her life, come alone. Don't try to play tricks. You should be very clear that we have eyes everywhere in Royal City. The letter was very clear, and everyone read it at a glance. The atmosphere in the secret room became heavy and solemn again. The third prince frowned, full of worry. "You guessed right. He had long guessed that I would help you, so, unfortunately, they also have eyes in Changfeng courtyard. Even if I quietly leave with the imperial army, I will most likely be discovered. Young Master Tianqing, let me think of a way, how can I help you?" Ji Tianqing casually shot out a flame, burning the letter to ashes, and said indifferently, "No need to think, I have a way." Chapter 30:19. No one knew what Ji Tianqing, the third prince and others discussed in the secret room. The people of the Changfeng courtyard only knew that the third prince was full of resentment and helplessness, and left dejectedly. Looking at that appearance, he seemed to be unable to help Ji Tianqing, so he felt guilty and annoyed. Of course. 2 commanders of the imperial army and more than 60 elites of the imperial army were also taken away by him. After leaving the Changfeng courtyard, the third prince and others returned to the palace and rested. At least, the spies and informants hidden in the dark saw the result. But no one knew that Ji Tianqing had quietly left the Changfeng courtyard with the help of the armillary sphere secret technique. He was not discovered by anyone and quietly sneaked into the palace. Then, he found the third prince, the commanders of the imperial army, and the 60 elites of the imperial army one by one. Under his guidance, everyone entered the Jiutian Tenju Tower and stayed on the 3rd floor of the tower. There was no other way. The 1st floor of the tower had too many ancient buildings, and the 2nd floor had the statues and altars of the primitive demon god. The 4th floor was a boundless sea, in which there were hundreds of millions of sea beast bones. There were too many clues in these spaces, and it was easy to expose the secrets of the tower. Only the 3rd floor space was a dark wasteland. There was only an ancient tomb made of black stone in the middle. As early as many years ago, Ji Tianqing had cracked the ancient tomb. The demon god scriptures and secret techniques hidden in the ancient tomb were also given to Ji Ku to practice. Now the ancient tomb was ruined, and only a pile of broken black stone was left. It was useless, and it would not expose the secrets of the Jiutian Tenju Tower. After a while, Ji Tianqing settled the third prince and the imperial army. Everyone stayed in the dark space, sitting cross-legged and waiting patiently. Ji Tianqing quietly returned to the Changfeng courtyard and entered the study room. The whole process was stealthy, and no one noticed the abnormality. Then, he lifted the state of invisibility and walked out of the study room openly. He did not take anyone with him, left the Changfeng courtyard alone, and rushed to the north gate of the royal city. In the process, no one knew how many eyes and divine sense were secretly watching him. Not only were there spies in Changfeng court, but there were also spies everywhere in King's City. When the spies and informants saw Ji Tianqing leave royal city alone and fly towards the north, they hurriedly sent messages to report the news. And be friends, please remind me, after reading for a long time, please pay attention to the rest of the eyes. 00 Recommended reading, SP, West Wind Town was located in the north of Royal City. It was a full 300,000 miles away from the Royal City, situated in the depths of the majestic and desolate mountains. Many years ago, more than 3,000 God clan citizens had gathered in this small town. However, they were surrounded by mountains, where countless monsters and divine birds lived. They often attacked the people of West Wind Town, causing heavy casualties. Unable to bear the hardships, the people moved out of West Wind Town more than 200 years ago and moved to a small town hundreds of thousands of miles away. West Wind Town was thus abandoned, and there were no citizens living there. Occasionally, some adventurers would pass by and stay there for a day or two. On the way to West Wind Town, Ji Tianqing was still silently calculating. No wonder the 5th prince chose West Wind Town. That place is desolate and uninhabited, suitable for him to set up an ambush. He has set up an inescapable net there, waiting for me to die. He should be there in person to enjoy the fruits of victory, right? I hope he is in West Wind Town. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with a cold light. He not only wants to save Wushuang, kill all the 5th prince's lackeys, and get rid of the 5th prince. If the 5th prince is also in West Wind Town, he can solve this problem once and for all. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Ji Tianqing hurried at his fastest speed, and had already flown 200,000 miles. At this moment, a communication jade slip flew over from the horizon and landed in front of him. It was just an ordinary jade slip, without any formation encryption. He picked up the jade slip, his divine sense entered it, and the voice of a young man sounded in his mind. At least you know your place, and know that playing tricks is useless. However, you have to hurry, there is less than 2 hours left. Your daughter is very safe now. If you come late, you can only collect her corpse, ha 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 ha." This person's tone was sinister and low, filled with hatred and resentment. Ji Tianqing could guess that the person who sent the message was the fifth prince. From this message, he was able to analyze several pieces of information. Firstly, the fifth prince was indeed in West Wind Town and was waiting for him to die. Secondly, Wu Shuang's life was not in danger. This made him feel slightly more at ease, and he sped up his journey. Unknowingly, another hour had passed. He flew for another 100,000 miles, crossing over numerous majestic mountain ranges, and was about to arrive at West Wind Town. And friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading NBSP. At this time, it was exactly 7:15. The golden sun had just risen from the horizon and was slowly rising into the sky. Boundless multicolored light shone on the mountains, causing the many cloud-shrouded peaks to be covered in a layer of gold. It was a magnificent sight. But Ji Tianqing wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. He spread out his divine sense and scouted West Wind Town a few thousand miles away. Soon, he found the small town in the mountains. Sure enough, it was surrounded by mountains on all sides and was located in a flat valley. A clear river that was 100 feet wide passed through the middle of the small town and flowed south along the foot of the mountain. The small town was not big, only 10 miles in radius. There were hundreds of palaces and houses in the town, but they were all abandoned and old. Most of them had collapsed and become a pile of ruins, revealing many dilapidated walls. Even the houses and palaces that did not collapse were overgrown with weeds and were a mess. Perhaps the fifth prince was fearless and was not afraid that Ji Tianqing would not come. There were actually 300 experts around the small town, all of them at the 8th and 9th level of the celestial god realm. Those experts were all wearing black armor, holding sabers, swords, and long spears, surrounding the small town. In addition, there was a palace that occupied an area of 10,000 feet in the middle of the small town. That palace was relatively well preserved and still had a majestic and solemn aura. Ji Tianqing detected that there were actually hundreds of Divine Lord realm experts outside the palace. Even though they were all first and second level Divine Lords. But there were nearly 100 of them, and they were still a very powerful and terrifying force. Most importantly, he even detected the auras of 6 high-level Divine Lords inside the palace. It's indeed an inescapable net, a sure-kill trap. Fortunately, he's a prince and has a powerful backer, that's why he can gather so many Divine Lord experts. A cold light flashed across Ji Tianqing's eyes as he muttered to himself. From the looks of it, he has failed too many times previously, even the Blood Sword sect was destroyed by me. This time, he must get rid of me. That's why he's willing to put in so much effort in order to be foolproof. Including the third prince, there were 6 high-level Divine Lords, nearly 100 low-level Divine Lords, and 300 celestial god experts. With such a powerful force, not to mention killing Ji Tianqing, even destroying sects like the Blood Sword sect and Blood Blade sect was more than enough. Before entering West Wind Town, Ji Tianqing already felt the fifth prince's killing intent. Chapter 30-20. Whoosh! There was a flash of white light and Ji Tianqing descended from the sky, landing in West Wind Town. The eyes and divine senses of the 300 celestial gods gathered on him. They all sneered, their eyes filled with mocking killing intent. Even the 100 or so lesser divine lords outside the palace noticed Ji Tianqing's arrival and began to size him up with their divine senses. Ji Tianqing walked toward the palace without a change in expression, ignoring everyone's reaction. 100 breaths later, he arrived at the palace gates. The lower divine lords guarding outside the palace all looked at him in unison. Many of them quietly gripped their swords and sabers, their expressions wary and wary. They had no choice. They had heard of Ji Tianqing's fame and battle achievements many times and were extremely afraid of Ji Tianqing. There were also some lesser divine lords who were gloating, sneering with mocking expressions and even whispering to each other. So he's Tianqing. There's nothing special about him. Ha! I heard that he was vicious and powerful, a ruthless character that could not be provoked. Now it seems that he's just as so. No matter how ruthless a character is, in front of our Lord, won't he still obediently surrender and accept his death? He clearly knows that this is his grave and he still dares to come alone. I really admire his fearlessness. This guy's brain must have been flooded with water. Isn't it just his daughter being captured? He can just have another child with his wife, why throw away his life? So, even the most powerful expert has weaknesses and openings. Our Lord is still the most powerful. Everyone discussed in low voices as they sized up Ji Tianqing with complicated expressions. Ji Tianqing looked straight ahead, ignoring the numerous lesser divine lords as he strode into the hall. The palace was very spacious. Although it was old, it was exceptionally clean and spotless. There were gemstone lamps embedded in the walls, emitting a bright divine light that illuminated the palace. When Ji Tianqing walked into the main hall, he saw a luxurious throne inlaid with gems at the head of the hall. A thin young man wearing a golden python robe and a dark golden crown sat on the throne. This person could be considered handsome. His face was as pale as paper and his fingers were slender and clean. He looked rather cultured and refined. Unfortunately, his eyes ruined his temperament. His eyes were long and narrow like willow leaves, slanted upward toward his temples. Even under normal circumstances, his eyes were narrowed, making him look very cold and gloomy. He was definitely not a straightforward person. One could tell at a glance that this person was the most low-key and patient fifth prince. On his left, there were two Sir God experts in blue robes and purple robes who were standing by the side of the throne. To his right were three divine lords, two of them were middle-aged divine race experts. The strongest one was the black-robed, white-haired old man. While Ji Tianqing was sizing up the fifth prince and the others, everyone's eyes were also focused on him, sizing him up with interest. Ha! You clearly know that this is the place this king chose for you to be buried, but you still came here without hesitation. Tianqing, I really admire your courage. The fifth prince looked down at Ji Tianqing, his right hand gently pinching his clean chin as he said with a smile. How is it? At this moment, what are your thoughts? Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and said in a low voice, I've arrived on time. Where's my daughter, Wushuang? The fifth prince smirked and said, what's the hurry? Your daughter is fine. I don't want to do anything to a child. But you've already done it, Ji Tianqing said coldly. Shame and anger flashed in the fifth prince's eyes, but he immediately covered it up. He quickly changed the topic and said with a cold smile, from the day you offended me and became my enemy, you were destined to end up like this. Although I've lost a few times during this period. That's because I've never taken you seriously and underestimated you. Now that I've taken you as my opponent and set up such a big formation to kill you, you must be honored, right? Ji Tianqing said indifferently, you thought you were noble and disdained to take me as your opponent. But the result was that you repeatedly failed in front of me, and even your most loyal lackey, the Blood Sword sect, was wiped out by me. Such a tragic defeat caused you to suffer heavy losses, lose face, and become the laughingstock of the entire divine kingdom. So, you did not hesitate to gather so many experts to deal with me, just to wash away your shame. Now the more proud you are, the more you want to vent your anger and resentment, the more it proves how badly you lost and how embarrassed you were. Indeed. The fifth prince had long hated him to the bone and regarded him as a thorn in his side. It was not easy to set up this trap and lure Ji Tianqing to West Wind Town. How could he bear to kill him? That would not be enough to vent his anger. He wanted to humiliate Ji Tianqing and torture Ji Tianqing. When his anger subsided, he would completely kill Ji Tianqing. But Ji Tianqing had long been aware of the fifth prince's thoughts. These words were merciless and exposed the fifth prince's shameful act in front of everyone. The fifth prince's heart burst with anger again, his hands trembling and the corners of his eyes twitching. However, he was confident of victory and considered himself the winner, so he quickly suppressed his anger. Ha! No wonder you make enemies everywhere and are so hateful. The fifth prince grinned and sneered, not hiding the murderous look on his face. Speaking another word to a lowly person like you is blasphemy to me. Ji Tianqing said indifferently, some people look like gold and jade, but are actually worthless. They think they are noble and unparalleled, but are actually as lowly as insects. And some people's nobility and extraordinariness are beyond your imagination. The fifth prince flew into a rage again, his fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and he almost could not help but attack. Too hateful, too damn infuriating. The blue-robed divine lord beside the throne immediately scolded, little bastard, don't be so arrogant. Your daughter is in our hands, and now you are also a prisoner. Don't forget your situation. The life and death of you and your daughter are in the hands of the fifth prince. If you want your daughter to live, kneel down and kowtow obediently and beg for mercy. When the fifth prince heard these words, the anger in his heart subsided. Men, bring that little girl here. Following his order, the stone door in the corner of the hall opened. Two lower divine lords in silver armor escorted Ji Wuxuang into the main hall. The moment Ji Wuxuang appeared, Ji Tianqing looked at her with concern, checking on her condition. Fortunately, she had not been hurt or tortured. Her delicate hair and clothes were neat and tidy, and her mental state was also very clear. However, she was tied up with a dark golden rope, and her arms were behind her back. Not only was it difficult for her to move, but her divine power was also sealed. She could not fly or use divine powers. But no matter what, seeing that she was safe and sound, Ji Tianqing was completely relieved. The two divine lords escorted Wuxuang to the fifth prince's throne. The fifth prince took out a dagger that glowed with green light and said with a cold smile, I can't believe that such a lowly race and bloodline like yours could give birth to such a delicate and cute daughter. But I hate perfect things the most. If I can cut this pretty little face a few times, it should be very satisfying, right? Chapter 30-21. Although Ji Wuxuang also had the strength of a god. Even if her face was cut a few times, she could heal the injury and recover to her original state. But Ji Tianqing was still worried. The fifth prince's ferocity would leave a psychological shadow on Wuxuang. He didn't want his daughter to be hurt in the slightest. Fortunately, Ji Wuxuang had been very calm and had a composure that didn't match her age. Even when the fifth prince put on such a big show and waved a poison dagger in front of her, she was never afraid. She just looked at Ji Tianqing worriedly, afraid that he would also fall here. After all, there were hundreds of experts and strong people in West Wind Town. Ji Tianqing couldn't leave alive by himself. Ji Tianqing stared coldly at the fifth prince and shouted in a deep voice, if you are still a man and still care about the face of the royal family and nobles, then come at me. This was exactly what the fifth prince wanted. He sneered and said, haha. I was waiting for you to say that. If you don't want anything to happen to your daughter, then kneel down and kowtow to me. When he said this, the fifth prince was in an extremely good mood. The five monarchs beside him also showed a mocking smile, waiting to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself. Everyone knew that even if Ji Tianqing knelt down and kowtowed, the fifth prince wouldn't forgive him. He would definitely die without a doubt. But before killing him, the fifth prince had to humiliate him severely to vent his anger. Ji Tianqing was silent and stared coldly at the fifth prince, as if he was hesitating and weighing the pros and cons. But in fact, he secretly said to Ji Wuxuang, Wuxuang, don't be afraid, Dad will take you away safely. Do you still remember the divine power I taught you back then? Ji Wuxuang's divine power was sealed and she couldn't use divine power, but her divine soul wasn't unconscious and could still communicate with her divine consciousness. She immediately understood Ji Tianqing's meaning and asked, Dad, are you talking about that phoenix returns to the nest? Of course Wuxuang remembers, I even cultivated it once not long ago. Phoenix's nest was a divine ability that Ji Tianqing had imparted to Ji Wuxuang many years ago. This included Yun Yao and Ji Wuhan, who had also cultivated this supreme technique. This divine ability was very mysterious, but it didn't have any destructive power. It was just a method of directional spatial teleportation. To put it simply, as long as one executed phoenix returns to nest, one could instantly teleport into the 9 heavens 10 absolutes tower. No matter what kind of situation or space they were in, they would be able to return directly to the divine pagoda. Of course, the spellcaster had to be within a certain distance from the 9 heavens 10 absolutes tower. Being too far would not do. Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with gratification. He transmitted his voice to Qinmu, although your divine power is sealed and you can't use phoenix returns to nest, you can still use it. However, Father will use that divine ability and use the power of the divine pagoda to take you back. You must not resist. This was the miraculous part of the phoenix's nest. Not only could the cultivator use it, but the tower holder could also use it in reverse. Ji Wuxuang didn't answer. He quietly winked at Ji Tianqing, indicating that he understood. Meanwhile, the 5th prince and the other divine emperors couldn't help but urge Ji Tianqing when they saw that he was silent. Tianqing, what are you waiting for? Do you think my knife isn't sharp enough? Kid, you have to think carefully. Is your face more important or your daughter's life more important? Do you think it's as simple as cutting your daughter's face? The blue soul poison on the dagger can corrode her divine soul and turn her into a complete lunatic and idiot. Kid, the 5th prince's patience is limited. Don't court death. Seeing that everyone was impatient, the dagger in the 5th prince's hand was already itching to try. Ji Tianqing didn't hesitate any longer and immediately activated the mark of the divine pagoda on his left arm. A mysterious connection immediately formed between the divine pagoda and Ji Wuxuang. Ji Tianqing quietly circulated his divine power and executed phoenix returns to nest as quickly as possible. Swoosh! The next moment, a white light shot out from his left arm and enveloped Ji Wuxuang at an incredible speed. Ji Wuxuang was already prepared. When the mysterious white light enveloped her, she instantly disappeared. A quarter of an instant later, she appeared on the 5th floor of the divine pagoda and stood in the origin divine array. Even though she was still bound by the dark golden rope and couldn't use divine power, she was completely safe. Even an ordinary divine king expert couldn't break into the divine pagoda and hurt her. She was out of danger, but instead of rejoicing, she became even more worried. Dad saved me and will definitely anger the 5th prince and the other divine emperors. Would he be able to withstand the siege of so many experts and safely escape from West Wind Town? Dad has always been meticulous and reliable. He should be confident, right? Ji Wuxuang stood on the altar and muttered to herself. At the same time, the 5th prince and the other divine emperors widened their eyes in disbelief, as if they had seen a ghost. Especially the 5th prince. The smug and mocking smile on his face froze on the spot. He looked at his empty left hand and then looked at Ji Tianqing's arm, confusion flashing through his eyes. A moment ago, he was holding Ji Tianqing in his left hand and holding a poison dagger in his right, forcing Ji Tianqing to kneel and admit his guilt. But now, Ji Wuxuang had disappeared. Without any leverage, how could he threaten and humiliate Ji Tianqing? Bastard! What did you do? The 5th prince glared angrily at Ji Tianqing. His chest was burning with rage, and his expression was ferocious as if he was about to devour someone. The 5 divine emperors also looked murderous as they stared at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing successfully saved Wushuang and no longer had any worries. He laughed contemptuously. "Little bastard, you want to fight me? You're too naive. You dare to use my daughter to threaten me? You must be tired of living." As he spoke, he took out the sword of burial of heaven and released a murderous aura that soared to the sky. There was no need to hold back anymore. He only needed to release his anger and murderous intent to his heart's content. Such a drastic change caused the 5th prince to frown and sneer. "Ha! You used a divine weapon to save your daughter while I was unprepared. Do you think you've won just like that? Don't get carried away. You are alone, while this king has 5 high-level divine lords and 400 elite experts. You and your daughter still have to die. Moreover, I'm going to tear you and your daughter into pieces and grind your bones to dust." As soon as the 5th prince finished speaking, Ji Tianqing couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense and attacked with all his might. Sword of Daytime. He shouted coldly as he held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and stabbed with all his might. Instantly, the tip of the sword emitted a dazzling golden light that instantly expanded to a radius of 1,000 feet and filled the entire palace. Kaboom! With an earth-shattering explosion, the huge palace collapsed on the spot, splashing out billions of brick fragments. A blazing golden sun emerged from the ruins and rose into the sky, illuminating the entire West Wind town. With the ruins as the center, the destructive sword energy spread out and engulfed more than half of West Wind town. The next moment, the ground within a radius of dozens of miles shook as if a super earthquake had occurred. Hundreds of palaces and mansions were smashed into pieces by the sword energy. The entire West Wind town was reduced to ruins. Chapter 30-22. The moment Ji Tianqing attacked, it was an all-out sword Dao ultimate technique. The power of this sword was truly terrifyingly powerful. Not only did it turn West Wind town into ruins, it also injured more than a dozen low-level divine lords and more than 20 elite experts. However, the 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords were fine. When Ji Tianqing attacked, everyone realized that something was wrong and immediately cast spells to block, joining forces to protect the 5th prince. Even so, the incomparably violent impact still sent the 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords flying back more than 10 miles. The 6 of them drew an arc in the sky and fell into the messy ruins. After that, Ji Tianqing flew high into the sky and stood there, overlooking the ruins. Seeing the confused and fearful expressions on the faces of the lower divine lords and elite experts around him, the corners of his mouth curled up in a cold and sinister smile. The 5th prince and the 5 high-level divine lords also flew out of the ruins and stood high in the sky. They faced off against Ji Tianqing across the sky, tens of thousands of feet away. "Little bastard. You're really courting death. This king originally wanted to let you live a little longer, but I didn't expect you to be so eager to die. Then this king will fulfill your wish." As he spoke, the 5th prince took out a dark golden divine sword and held it firmly in his hand. The black-robed, white-haired divine lord also stretched out his palms, his 10 fingers filled with dazzling 5-colored divine flames, his entire body bursting with a violent aura. He angrily glared at Ji Tianqing and coldly shouted, "Little bastard, you dare to attack hundreds of us alone. This is not confidence or courage, but arrogance and ignorance. This old man will immediately let you experience what it means to live a life worse than death." Ji Tianqing looked at the crowd with a cold smile and said, "I'm alone. Ha ha ha. To tell you the truth, I came here today to kill all of you. Not a single one will be left alive." As his voice fell, he opened the 3rd level of the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Streaks of white light appeared in the sky one after another, continuing to appear without end. In a short 2 breaths, the 3rd prince and many experts of the Imperial Guard appeared in the sky. A total of 63 people lined up neatly in the sky, forming a formation. Previously, they had been waiting patiently in the darkness on the third level of the divine pagoda. At this moment, they could finally show themselves. All of them were clad in armor and wielding swords, emanating murderous aura. The fifth prince and many divine emperors were dumbfounded when they saw the third prince and the imperial guards appear out of nowhere. "It's you. Third imperial brother, and the imperial guards. You, how did you? This is impossible. Didn't you all return to the palace to rest? Our spies have been monitoring him all the way. They clearly saw him alone. How could this be? How did you do it?" Everyone's expression changed drastically. They were both shocked and in disbelief. At the same time, a trace of worry appeared in his heart. The third prince was also wearing a golden armor and holding a broad heavy sword. He angrily shouted with a dignified voice, "Old Five, you sent people to break into Changfeng courtyard and openly robbed my guests. How dare you? You're openly challenging the laws of the kingdom of God. You even used young Master Tianheng's daughter as a hostage to ambush him with a large army. This is even more sinister and despicable. Do you still have the demeanor of a royal child? You don't deserve to be a prince of the kingdom of God, let alone the crown prince. I'm ashamed to be your brother." The third prince angrily rebuked the fifth prince with a righteous attitude. At least in terms of momentum, he completely had the upper hand. The fifth prince was extremely angry. He gritted his teeth and sneered, "Old Three, you actually went against your brother for this little bastard. How can you be worthy of father's cultivation? Winner takes all. What qualifications do you have to criticize me? Even if you're not convinced, father will appoint me as the crown prince. Your good days are over. Now think about how to curry favor with me so that you can keep your family business." "Ha ha, what a joke." The third prince looked up to the sky and laughed, full of disdain. "Father hasn't announced the edict yet, and you really think of yourself as the crown prince? You're so despicable and arrogant. You don't care about the laws of the kingdom of God and the face of the royal family. What qualifications do you have to be the crown prince? Now, as the governor of the imperial guards, I'm going to arrest you, a villain who has no regard for the law, and let father decide your crime." After that, the third prince looked at the Sir Gods with a dignified gaze and shouted, "The imperial guards are on duty to arrest criminals. Whoever dares to disobey will be sentenced to death." The Sir Gods and experts under the fifth prince's command suddenly looked worried, hesitant and fearful. The imperial guards were the king's sword, representing the dignity of the king and the kingdom of God. The crowd was also worried. What if this matter was blown out of proportion and they really wanted to pursue the matter? They worked for the fifth prince for a reason and for benefits. No one wanted to implicate their entire family. The fifth prince saw the strange look on the crowd's face and quickly sneered, "Old Three, don't you use the king's authority to intimidate others. The imperial guards are father's guards. You used them without permission to help Tianqing settle his personal grudge. This is a heinous crime. Moreover, this is not King City. What qualifications do you have to arrest people?" Hearing his words, the Sir Gods and experts were a little relieved and regained their confidence. The third prince frowned and wanted to argue a little more. Ji Tianqing had lost his patience and a look of disappointment flashed across his eyes. Before the operation, the third prince was extremely angry and looked like he was going to start a massacre regardless of anything. I didn't expect that he was just putting on a show in front of me. Now that they are confronting the fifth prince, they seem to be quarreling fiercely and look like they are going to kill each other if they disagree. But in fact, these two princes are only quarreling and don't want to kill each other. Although the two princes acted very realistically, how could they fool Ji Tianqing? He could see that the two princes had scruples and didn't dare to kill each other. The imperial guards were the third prince's trump card. The Sir Gods and experts around them were probably the fifth prince's trump card too. Both of them didn't want to waste each other's strength here, in case the second prince took advantage of them. But how could this work? What Ji Tianqing wanted was to engage in a chaotic battle and start a massacre. Therefore, while the two princes were arguing, he secretly used his poison divine power and released 9 invisible poisons. Under his precise control, the 9 poisons quietly spread among the Sir Gods and experts. But the third prince and the imperial guards beside him weren't affected. After releasing the poisons, Ji Tianqing waved the burial of heaven and charged at the few Sir Gods not far away with a thunderous force. They were 8 low-level Sir Gods. They were all holding Kenshin weapons and were ready to attack. They hadn't received the 5th prince's order to attack and didn't dare to act without permission. They also didn't expect Ji Tianqing to suddenly attack. Sun-shattering sword. The burial of heaven waved the sword and instantly slashed out 18 5-colored sword beams. They carried more than 60 nomological powers and enveloped the 9 Sir Gods. Chapter 30-23. Bam! 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 A series of muffled sounds exploded in the sky. The 9 lesser divine lords had no time to dodge and were sliced into several pieces by the sword light. Blood splattered and severed limbs flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, 6 of the 9 lesser divine lords were killed by Ji Tianqing. The remaining 3 divine lords, whose godheads were still intact, flew out of their corpses in a panic and retreated into the distance. But the moment the 3 godheads appeared, Ji Tianqing swung his sword and sliced them into pieces. Kacha! Kacha! With a crisp shattering sound, the 3 godheads fell apart and scattered into dozens of pieces. The 9 lesser divine lords died on the spot. Both the 5th prince and the 3rd prince were stunned by the sudden change. The 2 of them didn't expect Ji Tianqing to be so hot-tempered. He didn't care about the consequences at all and directly attacked. This guy was simply lawless. Seeing that Ji Tianqing did not stop, he brandished his sword and attacked the other divine lords. The 5th prince finally came to his senses and quickly ordered loudly, "Kill them. Kill him and chop him into pieces." At this juncture, he could not care about the consequences. If he did not fight back, more of the divine lords under his command would be slaughtered by Ji Tianqing. After receiving the 5th prince's order, the 300 experts shouted loudly and launched a siege with murderous intent. Kill! Kill Tianqing and His Highness will reward you handsomely. As the roars rang out, the 300 experts waved their Kenshin weapons wildly and released sword light and sword shadows that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianqing was fearless and immediately used the celestial dragon overlord body to transform into a 1,000 feet tall golden armored god of war and launched a counterattack. No matter how gloomy and unwilling the 3rd prince was, he could only order the imperial guards to fight with all their might under such circumstances. After all, there were more than 300 people on the other side and the divine skill light and shadows that filled the sky covered dozens of miles. If the imperial guards did not fight back, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Moreover, they were in the middle of the enemy's encirclement and had no way to escape. If he wanted to survive, he could only fight back. In the next moment, the divine abilities and secret techniques used by both sides collided fiercely in the sky, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Boom boom boom. Bang 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 bang. The deafening sound waves reverberated in the sky, spreading to a radius of 1,000 miles. Countless saber lights, sword shadows, and images of divine arts all shattered, exploding into billions of fragments of divine light. Violent and devastating shockwaves spread out in all directions. The ruined West Wind town immediately disappeared without a trace. Even the ground was dug hundreds of feet deep. In the first round of confrontation between the two sides, there were already severe casualties. Of the 300 enlightened masters under the 5th prince's command, dozens were killed, and more than 80 were seriously injured. Those people were either struck by the shockwaves or by the remnants of the divine abilities. Otherwise, he would be blasted into smithereens, and even his godhead would be shattered. Either their bodies were destroyed, their godheads were severely damaged, and they fled into the distance on their last breaths. After all, a battlefield where over 100 Divine Lord powerhouses were killing each other was not something that they could participate in. Not to mention injuring the Divine Lord powerhouses, if they were caught in the flames of battle, they would become cannon fodder. In addition, of the 90 Divine Lords under the 5th Prince, 8 of them were seriously injured and almost died. That was Ji Tianqing's doing. Seeing that the upper Divine Lords were protecting the 5th Prince, he did not attack him, but turned to kill the lower Divine Lords. Because the difference in numbers between the two sides was too great. He had to eliminate the Divine Lords under the 5th Prince's command as quickly as possible. As for the 3rd Prince and the many Imperial Guards, the casualties were not too bad. Needless to say, the 3rd Prince was basically safe. The other side's experts did not dare to kill him, lest they bear the crime of murdering the prince and be chased to the ends of the earth by the Bloodfire Divine Country. Therefore, the experts under the 5th Prince could only besiege Ji Tianqing and the Imperial Guards. However, Ji Tianqing was very powerful and it was difficult to track him. As for the 60 Imperial Guards and the 2 commanders, they were all powerful and well-equipped elites. After the first round of battle, only 5 Imperial Guards were killed and 12 were injured. Both sides paused their attacks. The 200 or so Empyrean gods under the 5th Prince's command all fled in fear. The 2 upper Divine Lords covered the 5th Prince and took the opportunity to retreat to the edge of the battlefield. This was the Crown Prince of the Divine Country, the future monarch. How could he stay in the middle of a chaotic battle? The other 3 upper Divine Lords quickly commanded the 80 lower Divine Lords to form a battle formation in the sky. The 3rd Prince also took the opportunity to command the Imperial Guards to change to another defensive battle formation. He did not hope to kill many people, only to reduce the number of casualties. These 50 or so Imperial Guards were his treasures. His heart would ache if any of them died. If more than half of them died, he would really want to cry but no tears would come out. However, while the 2 sides were adjusting their battle formations, Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to stir up trouble again. He used the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist with his left hand and attacked the lower Divine Lords in the east. His right hand waved the Burial of Heaven sword and released hundreds of lightning sword lights that enveloped dozens of Divine Lords. Boom! 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 The mountain-sized Dragon Elephant Divine Fist struck 6 lower Divine Lords with a loud bang. The 6 of them were smashed into meat paste and their godheads were also severely damaged. They had lost the ability to fight and fled into the distance in a panic. The 30 or so Divine Lords were also killed by the hundreds of lightning sword lights and turned into a rain of blood and flesh. They did not even manage to protect their godheads and died on the spot. At the edge of the battlefield, the 5th Prince saw this scene and was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Damned beast! You will die a horrible death. Kill him. Everyone, surround him and kill him for this prince. The 5th Prince roared at the top of his lungs, his eyes red with anger. No one knew that the reason he was so angry was not because he was grieving for those experts who had died. It was because half of the Divine Lords and elite experts had been lent to him by that faction. If one more person died today, he would have to pay an even higher price to become the monarch in the future. That faction had not helped him for free. Many Divine Lords received the order and immediately used their ultimate killing moves to surround Ji Tianqing. Hundreds of glowing saber lights and sword shadows, which blotted out the sun, fell from the sky and bombarded Ji Tianqing. What was worse was that the 5th Prince even shouted at the 3rd Prince, "Third brother, as long as you retreat with the Imperial Guards, our grudge will be written off. Don't interfere in this matter and this prince will owe you a favor." How arrogant was the 5th Prince before? Now, he had taken the initiative to beg for peace and lowered his head to the 3rd Prince. It was obvious that he was really desperate. Of course, it was also obvious that his hatred for Ji Tianqing was bone deep. The third prince hesitated for a moment and was struggling in his heart. However, he immediately came to his senses and shouted righteously, "Fifth prince, this prince is enforcing the law impartially. Don't make a mistake. It's not too late to stop now." He knew very well that the fifth prince's words could not be trusted. If he really took the imperial guards away and allowed the fifth prince to kill Ji Tianqing, he would have no hope of fighting for the throne. Chapter 30-24. Stop. I will teach you a lesson. The fifth prince was so angry that he almost vomited blood as he cursed with a livid expression. Everyone was taking revenge for personal grudges and using public resources for private purposes. They had a tacit understanding. At this juncture, the third prince still had to pretend to be righteous. This made the fifth prince so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Seeing that the negotiation was not going to work, he could only order those Sir Gods to kill Ji Tianqing at all costs. Boom! 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 Divine arts that blotted out the skies suddenly engulfed Ji Tianqing. However, most of the divine arts attacks were blocked by the Imperial Guard's battle formation. A small number of blade lights and sword shadows hit Ji Tianqing, but they were either neutralized by him or blocked by him. He was pushed back 10,000 feet and only suffered some light injuries. This was not a big deal. He pounced toward another group of Sir Gods with murderous intent. Heavenly Dragon World / Sect Returning Swords. Ji Tianqing's fighting spirit was high. He exploded with his peak fighting strength and madly executed his Sword Dao divine arts. At this moment, his fighting strength was comparable to a Sir God who had just reached the 8th degree realm. He was really invincible. Once those low-level Sir Gods were hit by his Sword Dao divine arts, if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. As for the third prince and the Imperial Guards, not only did they form a formation to block the attacks, they also frequently helped Ji Tianqing out. This made Ji Tianqing kill to his heart's content as he wantonly slaughtered the Sir Gods under the fifth prince. Very quickly, 30 breaths passed. There were only about 50 low-level Sir Gods under the fifth prince and half of them were injured. Not long after the battle began, he had lost 50 low-level Sir Gods. Most of them were killed by Ji Tianqing. Only a dozen or so were killed by the Imperial Guards. This made the fifth prince so depressed that he vomited blood. He wished that he could personally go up and tear Ji Tianqing into pieces. However, 2 high-level Sir Gods kept protecting him and were determined not to let him go up. Helpless, the fifth prince could only order the 3 high-level Sir Gods to attack Ji Tianqing with all their might. They had to hold him back and stop him from wantonly slaughtering. Upon receiving the order, the 3 high-level divine lords charged towards Ji Tianqing without a care in the world, joining forces to besiege him. The 3 of them cooperated with each other very well. Their methods were sinister and ruthless. They used all kinds of divine abilities and absolute arts at their fingertips. They were veteran Sir Gods who had gone through thousands of battles. No matter how strong Ji Tianqing was, being entangled by the 3 of them, he wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. Moreover, there were still dozens of lower divine lords who were constantly casting spells to sneak attack him. Ji Tianqing immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. He was beaten back repeatedly by the 3 high-level divine lords and was exhausted from defending himself. However, he had been retreating to the edge of the battlefield. He was not seriously injured and was still in peak condition. Seeing him getting closer and closer to the fifth prince finally realized that something was wrong. What does this little bastard want to do? Escape? No. Is he trying to assassinate me? The fifth prince suddenly guessed the answer. He narrowed his eyes and grinned. I am the crown prince. How dare he assassinate me? What a lawless person. At the same time, he sent a voice transmission to the two high-level divine lords beside him. Tsang Yen, Baizhu, take this opportunity to kill him. Tsang Yen was the black-robed, white-haired old man. He was the strongest of the 5 high-level divine lords. Baizhu was a middle-aged man who was as thin as a bamboo pole. His skin was as white as paper and he knew more than 20 evil divine abilities. These two were the 5th prince's most trusted aides. Therefore, they would rather not participate in the battle and stay close to the 5th prince to protect him. However, Ji Tianqing was closing in on them, intending to assassinate the 5th prince. They no longer hesitated and stepped forward to stand in front of the 5th prince. While protecting the 5th prince, they stared at Ji Tianqing, ready to strike at any time. Ji Tianqing and the 3 high-level divine lords fought for more than 20 moves. Finally, he retreated to the edge of the battlefield, only 10,000 feet away from the 5th prince. He used a sword Dao divine ability to force the 3 high-level divine lords back. Then, he took the opportunity to use a divine ability secret art to assassinate the 5th prince. Sword piercing the 9 heavens. Suddenly, his body glowed with golden light, as dazzling as the sun. He held the huge sword of burial of heaven with both hands and unleashed 120% of his strength, slashing out a 1,000-foot-long sword. The huge sword was golden and dazzling, as if it was real. It contained a divine might that could destroy heaven and earth. More than 60 kinds of divine patterns could be seen on the huge sword blade, as if they contained the truths of the great Tao. Before the sword light arrived, the terrifying slaughter sword intent had already suppressed Tsang Yen, Baizhu, and the 5th prince. The 3 of them looked serious and shocked as they used all their strength to block the attack. 9 Flames Dragon. Tsang Yen waved his palms and unleashed 9 colored divine flames, forming a long dragon of flames to block the huge sword's attack. Vanishing Illusion. Baizhu stretched out his pale hands and released black and white divine power, forming a huge roulette in front of the 3. Even the 5th prince took out an ancient bronze chessboard to block in front of him. Kaboom! The huge sword finally slashed down, instantly severing the long dragon of flames. Then, the black and white roulette was also cut in half by the huge sword. Bam! In the end, the huge sword, which had been weakened by 40%, struck the ancient bronze chessboard with an earth-shattering boom. The ancient bronze chessboard trembled violently. The 5th prince's face turned pale as he was sent flying. While he was still in midair, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Clearly, he had been injured by the sword. His internal organs and meridians had all been damaged. However, the ancient bronze chessboard's defense was very strong. It was not cut in half, and he managed to survive. Ji Tianqing had wanted to take advantage of the situation to pursue and kill the 5th prince, but Tsang Yen and Baizhu had risked their lives to protect the 5th prince. The other 3 high-level divine lords also took the opportunity to attack him fiercely. Ji Tianqing had no choice but to give up on assassinating the 5th prince and turn around to deal with the 3 high-level divine lords. This time, he was no longer suppressed by the 3 of them like before. He suddenly became fierce, and his fighting strength increased twofold. The 3 high-level divine lords found it difficult to deal with him. Heaven-piercing sword. Heaven-splitting sword. God-slaying sword. Burial of heaven. He used all sorts of sword Dao abilities one after the other, filling the sky with sword light. Invisible sword intent suppressed the 3 high-level divine lords, making them feel uneasy and fearful. After 10 some moves, a high-level divine lord's legs were severed, and he screamed as he fell into the rubble. After another 20 moves, a second high-level divine lord was cleaved in half, his blood spraying across the sky. This person's body was destroyed, and the 2 halves of his corpse fell into the rubble. The god had hurriedly fled from West Wind Town, vanishing into the horizon. The remaining 2 high-level divine lords were attacking Ji Tianqing, and one of them had even been heavily injured. This greatly reduced the pressure on Ji Tianqing, and he was able to handle the situation with greater ease. While dealing with two high-level divine lords, he could also find time to kill those celestial gods who were trembling in fear and hiding in the distance. The fifth prince's heart was burning with worry. He ordered the 40-some low-level divine lords to work together to kill Ji Tianqing. But the third prince and the imperial guards were doing their best to block the attacks and protect Ji Tianqing with all their strength. The fifth prince was completely anxious, so he had Song Yan and Bai Zhu join the battle. Chapter 30-25. Song Yan and Bai Zhu joined the battle and attacked Ji Tianqing together with the other two high divine lords. The pressure on Ji Tianqing suddenly increased and his attacks slowed down. It was even harder for him to gain the upper hand and he had to defend himself and counterattack. Song Yan and Bai Zhu had not participated in the battle and were in their peak condition. The moment they attacked, they used all kinds of ultimate moves and their attacks were very fierce. However, their aura was like a drum of energy, then weakened, and exhausted. After 100 breaths of time, Ji Tianqing blocked and neutralized all their ultimate moves. Their attacks also slowed down, and the power of their attacks decreased a little. Only now did the battle stabilize and become peaceful. The strength of the two high divine lords was even weaker, especially the guy who had both his legs chopped off. He was already somewhat exhausted. Even Song Yan and Bai Zhu had used up a lot of their divine power. The pressure on Ji Tianqing was greatly reduced and he could easily deal with the attacks of the four people. Not far away, the 40-odd lower divine lords and the 50-odd imperial guards were also gradually deciding who was better. The third prince and the two imperial guards commanders were all 7th heaven realm high divine lords. The 50 imperial guards were slightly stronger than the low divine lords in terms of equipment and strength. Therefore, the imperial guards had a great advantage. Their battle formation was unbreakable and no matter how the low divine lords attacked, they could firmly block and neutralize them. As a result, the low divine lords could not threaten Ji Tianqing at all. However, even though the third prince and the imperial guards had the advantage, they did not take the initiative to attack and kill. They did not want to achieve anything, only to avoid mistakes. The third prince did not want to annihilate the low divine lords and obtain victory. He only wanted to block the attacks of the high divine lords and protect Ji Tianqing. When the stalemate reached the end, he would negotiate with the fifth prince and save Ji Tianqing. That would be the end of his mission. The stalemate continued and the battle did not stop. The fifth prince became more and more anxious and he could not help but attack Ji Tianqing from afar several times. He understood that there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. The fact that he had set up an ambush in West Wind Town and killed Ji Tianqing, there must be others who knew about it. If time dragged on for too long, it was inevitable that there would be variables. We can't go on like this. I have to think of a way to get rid of that brat as soon as possible. The fifth prince furrowed his brows and racked his brains for a countermeasure. However, right at this moment, a large expanse of colorful divine light flew over from the sky not far away. Swoosh! Swish swish swish! The dazzling divine light streaked across the sky and soon arrived at the valley. These people stopped at the edge of the battlefield and observed the situation. The people who came were not many, just 7, but they were all divine lord realm powerhouses. Among them, there were 5 high-level god monarchs and 2 middle-level god monarchs of the 6th stage. The leader was a burly man wearing a golden python robe and a golden crown. This person had a dignified appearance. He had a pair of large eyes, white hair, and a goatee on his chin. It was the second prince. The 4 high-level god monarchs behind him were the chief of staff, Yen Long, a hunchbacked old man, and 2 generals wearing golden armor. As for the 2 middle-level god monarchs, they stood at the very back and did not attract much attention. The second prince's arrival caused Ji Tianqing, the third prince, and the fifth prince to reveal looks of surprise and complicated expressions. The fifth prince's gaze turned even more solemn and his expression turned even uglier. The third prince was stunned and subconsciously asked, "Second royal brother, what are you doing here? How did you find this place?" Only Ji Tianqing's reaction was very calm, as if he had long expected this result. The second prince stroked his beard, his expression dignified and his tone heavy as he said, "Old third, don't forget that this prince has control of the Divine Kingdom's largest information and intelligence organization. To put it immodestly, nothing that happens in Royal City can escape this prince's eyes and ears. What happened last night, this prince already knows. Old third, both of us have underestimated Old Fifth's methods. He is unremarkable when he doesn't make a sound, but when he does, he amazes everyone. In order to deal with young Master Tianqing, he actually used such a sinister and despicable move. This is really impressive." The second prince had a cold smile on his face and his tone was contemptuous and mocking. The fifth prince's face instantly became even longer. His gaze was cold as he shouted, "Old second, what are you trying to do?" The third prince had brought the imperial guards to help Ji Tianqing and had already ruined his plan. Now that the second prince had also come to join in the fun, how could he not be angry? The second prince said with a smile, "Little fifth, young Master Tianqing is this prince's friend and his daughter is this prince's niece. Miss Wushuang is so smart and cute, this prince can't wait to dote on her. How can you do such a sinister and shameless thing? This is an insult to the ancestors of the royal family. This prince came today to rescue this prince's friend, young Master Tianqing, and this prince's little niece. If you dare to stop me, don't blame this prince for being impolite." Hearing this, the third prince sneered in his heart. The fifth prince was so angry that he gritted his teeth. "Second brother, you're the most shameless bastard of all. What relationship do you have with Tianqing?" Everyone was well aware of this. "Stop putting on an act here, you are just using this opportunity to target this prince." Since the truth had been exposed, the second prince was not angry. He smiled without changing his expression and said, "Yes, you guessed right, little fifth. But so what? This prince wants to take this opportunity to teach you a lesson and let you know that seniority is important. Don't be so complacent." After that, he stopped smiling and scolded sternly, "Little fifth, let young Master Tianqing go immediately and this prince will let bygones be bygones." The fifth prince did not expect that this second prince would openly fall out with him. He did not want to hide his embarrassment anymore. In his extreme anger, he sneered and said, "You want this prince to let him go? Dream on. What are you going to do?" The second prince stretched out his right hand and took out a magical sword embedded with 3 gems. He said with a murderous look, "Then this prince will have no choice but to snatch him. Furthermore, this bunch of lackeys of yours, none of them can think about leaving alive." When his voice faded, the second prince waved his sword and gave the order to attack. Those 6 divine lord powerhouses unsheathed their Kenshin weapons without hesitation and attacked the fifth prince's people. 4 high-level divine lords rushed toward those dozens of low-level divine lords, while the 2 middle-level divine lords massacred the celestial deity powerhouses around the battlefield. The moment the great battle started, divine light immediately exploded in the field. A loud noise shook the heavens. In less than 10 breaths of time, more than 30 of those celestial deity powerhouses were killed. The 100+ lucky survivors were horrified, hurriedly turning around and fleeing. This time, they ignored the third prince's orders and really fled at the last minute. They spread out and fled in all directions. Very soon, they left the valley and disappeared without a trace. Those 2 middle-level divine lords did not give chase either. They turned around and charged toward that group of low-level divine lords. The second prince did not make a move. He just stood in the air and gave orders. The 6 divine lords under his command were not as fearful as the imperial guards. They all charged and killed with unparalleled bravery. More than 40 low-level divine lords were immediately met with a calamity of annihilation. Large numbers of casualties appeared within a short time. Seeing this scene, the third prince was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Chapter 30-26. When the second prince arrived at West Wind Town and sent experts to join the battle, the scales of victory had already tipped toward Ji Tianqing. The third prince had originally brought 300 heavenly gods with him. More than 100 of them had been killed, and the remaining 120 had fled without a trace. Only 40 or so lower divine lords and 4 higher divine lords were still bitterly holding on. The fierce battle continued for another 100 breaths of time. At this time, the 6 lower divine lords under the second prince's command had already killed or severely injured more than a dozen lower divine lords. In addition, the third prince and the imperial guards continued to attack and suppress the remaining lower divine lords. As a result, the remaining 30 or so lower divine lords fell into a desperate situation of life and death. If the battle continued, they would all die. The fifth prince had expected this and was as worried as ants on a hot pan. Not long after, Ji Tianqing found an opportunity to hack the monarch god whose legs had been chopped off into pieces with his sword. This person was lucky enough to survive, but his godhead was severely injured and he fled the battlefield in a panic. Ji Tianqing wanted to chase after him, but Song Yan, Bai Zhu, and the other god lord hurriedly stopped him. It looked like the fifth prince's plan was about to fail. He could not help but swing his divine sword and personally attack Ji Tianqing. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. The 30 or so lower divine lords had already expended a large amount of divine power, and many of them were severely injured. Their bodies were drenched in blood. Suddenly, someone's face turned pitch black and black blood spurted out of his orifices as he let out a shrill scream. There were also people who coughed up blood and fell to the ground, twitching and spasming. At first, only 3 people were in such a state. But soon, one lower divine lord after another's body turned black and blood spurted out of their orifices as they fell to the ground. This symptom spread like a virus and quickly spread through the crowd. Pfff, ugh, aw. All kinds of blood spurting, blood vomiting, and miserable screams erupted in the sky, rising and falling one after another. There was no need for the second prince or the third prince to do anything. The 30 or so lower divine lords quickly lost their ability to fight. Everyone fell into the ruins, howling miserably in pain. They rolled on the ground, and large amounts of blood flowed out of their bodies. This sudden and unexpected event caused everyone to stop fighting, and they revealed expressions of astonishment and bewilderment. Everyone's gazes were gathered on those lower divine lords, unable to make sense of the situation. Only Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to attack Song Yan, Bai Zhu, and the others. A cold sneer flashed across his eyes. It's been half an hour since the start of the battle, and the poison has only erupted now. It's really well hidden. Without a doubt, those lower divine lords were all poisoned. Previously, Ji Tianqing had opened the 3rd floor of the divine pagoda and released the third prince and the many imperial guards. He had originally thought that everyone would fight to the death. However, the third prince was afraid of the fifth prince. He even argued with the fifth prince, dilly-dallying, and didn't want to fight. Thus, Ji Tianqing took the opportunity to release the 9 invisible poisons. In order to not alert the other party, he hid the poisons very well and spread them out silently. It wasn't just the lower divine lords. The 200 or so heavenly gods were also invisibly corroded by the poisons. However, the poisons had concealed themselves for a long time. After half an hour, the lower divine lords had exhausted more than half of their strength. Only then did the poison suddenly erupt. Although the poison had erupted a little late. However, its power was astonishingly terrifying. Once it erupted, there was no saving them. They would die without a doubt. Before long, those lower divine lords lying in the ruins, howling and rolling on the ground, had turned into pools of blood and died on the spot. Even their godheads had been corroded to pieces and scattered among the ruins. They were completely and utterly dead. 1, 2, 3, the lower divine lords on the ground were disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving behind only pools of blood. Such a horrifying scene made everyone's scalps go numb. This was especially so for the Imperial Guards. They all revealed looks of dread as they discussed amongst themselves through telepathy. The third prince was also very puzzled, not understanding what was going on. Only the second prince carefully observed the reactions of those lower divine lords. After frowning and pondering for a moment, he came to a realization. He suddenly understood the reason. Turning his head to look at Ji Tianqing, he gave him a deep look. His lips moved soundlessly, and he mouthed 2 words, impressive. No one knew when Ji Tianqing had poisoned them. Even those lower divine lords didn't know that they had been poisoned. This kind of invisible poisoning method that took lives indeed made people tremble with fear. The fifth prince was dumbfounded. Seeing the elite experts under his command rapidly decomposing into pools of blood, he was so furious that he almost exploded. At the same time, his heart was filled with fear. The result he didn't want to see the most had finally happened. It's poison. They've been poisoned. The fifth prince finally reacted, his voice hoarse as he roared. He watched as the last lower divine lord also turned into pools of blood amidst a miserable howl, completely dead. The fifth prince suddenly turned around, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at Ji Tianqing. He roared at the top of his lungs, "It's you. It's you, you bastard. You actually poisoned them." At this moment it was meaningless for him to say that Ji Tianqing was bloodthirsty, savage, and cruel. Previously, he himself had said that the winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. Everything depended on strength and methods. His skills were inferior, and he had lost dozens of lower divine lords for nothing. It was not an unjust loss. However, he hadn't been able to kill Ji Tianqing and had even suffered such terrible losses. It could be said that he had completely collapsed. The remaining confidants under his command, as well as the experts that the faction had lent him, were practically all dead. Even if he became the crown prince in the future and ascended to the throne as monarch, he would still have to compensate for the huge losses. He would also be blackmailed into signing all sorts of humiliating agreements, betraying the interests of the royal family and the blood-flame divine kingdom. He would definitely become the most humiliated monarch. When he thought of this, his vision turned black, and he felt the world spin. But this was just the beginning of a nightmare. Ji Tianqing stared at him, the corners of his mouth curled into a mocking sneer. He nodded and said, "That's right, I poisoned them before the battle began. Not only them, but those heavenly gods who escaped should also be dead by now. Oh right, there's also the 4 of you. The poison should have taken effect by now." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of Tsang Yan, Bai Zhu, the fifth prince, and the red-robed divine lord changed drastically. The 4 of them trembled, their eyes filled with deep fear. The fifth prince, in particular, suffered the greatest psychological blow. His blood was already flowing in the opposite direction, and his vision had turned black. When he heard this news, his internal organs immediately churned, and he vomited a mouthful of black blood. Pfff, an arrow of blood shot more than 10 feet into the air, drawing an arc in the sky and sprinkling on the red-robed divine lord. "Your Highness! Your Highness!" Tsang Yan, Bai Zhu, and the other 2 immediately let out anxious and concerned cries. Chapter 30-27. As expected, the fifth prince was poisoned. His entire face had turned black, and his veins were bulging. Black blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. His internal organs had been corroded into black ashes, and they were mixed with blood as they spurted out of his mouth. He screamed in pain, holding his head with both hands and letting out a muffled roar. Song Yan, Bai Zhu, and the red-robed divine emperor were dumbfounded. They could not understand. The fifth prince did not participate in the battle, nor did he consume much of his divine power. Even his cultivation realm was on par with theirs, not much different from theirs. Why did the fifth prince's poison break out before the poison in their bodies did? Could it be that the poison's effect was related to one's rage level? After all, the fifth prince had been humiliated and humiliated repeatedly. He was in a rage. Just as this thought flashed through their minds, the poison in their bodies took effect one after another. The red-robed divine emperor's injuries were even more serious. He could not hold on any longer and spat out black blood. Immediately after, Bai Zhu's body trembled like a sieve. His internal organs were burning as he fell to the ground, twitching non-stop. Song Yan was the strongest. He lasted a few breaths longer than the other two before black blood gushed out of his mouth and nose. This time, the fifth prince's men were completely wiped out. The battle had already stopped. The second prince and the third prince's men looked at this scene with complicated expressions. They felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone had a deeper understanding of Ji Tianqing's methods. They were even more in awe and fear. However, the second prince and the third prince's expressions were somewhat strange. They saw the fifth prince bleeding from his 7 orifices and howling in pain. Soon, he would turn into a pool of blood. The third prince was filled with hesitation and struggle. He thought to himself, no, fifth prince can't die yet. At least, he can't die here. Father has already appointed him as the crown prince. If he is poisoned to death by Tianqing, father will definitely be furious. No matter what the reason is, father will definitely kill Tianqing. Even second brother and I will be implicated. We will definitely be severely punished by father. Thinking of this, he wanted to persuade Ji Tianqing to save the poisoned fifth prince. As for the second prince, he was gloating. There was a hint of anticipation in his complicated eyes. Ha ha ha, old fifth, oh old fifth, we thought you were scheming enough and would bring us a lot of trouble. I didn't expect that you still weren't Tianqing's match. You were poisoned by him and didn't have long to live. That's great. If you die, you won't be able to become the crown prince. This king has one less competitor. Next, I only need to defeat the third prince and I will be able to seize the throne. Moreover, you were killed by Tianqing. It has nothing to do with this prince. For the sake of Scandinavia's reputation, father would definitely execute Tianqing. As for this prince, at most, I will be punished by my father, but my life will not be in danger. This is really killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This prince really has to thank Tianqing. The second prince hoped that the fifth prince would be poisoned to death as soon as possible and turn into a pool of blood. Then his wish would be fulfilled, and he wouldn't have to bear the crime. However, things didn't go as planned. The fifth prince howled in pain for a moment. Then, he suddenly took out a large number of divine pills and refined them. Then, he took out the bronze chessboard and a dark green cauldron. He released his divine power and activated these 2 divine artifacts. Suddenly, the bronze chessboard emitted a 5-colored light that protected his entire body. The dark green cauldron also released an endless amount of green light that entered his body and resisted the corrosion of the poison. These weren't enough. He took out a shining golden talisman and stuck it on the corroded hole in his chest. Suddenly, the mysterious golden talisman emitted an endless amount of golden light and formed a special protective layer in his body that firmly protected his heart and Godhead. Even though his heart was poisoned and had a few holes in it, his organs were still damaged. The rest of his organs had already died and turned into black powder. However, he managed to survive with the 2 divine artifacts and the talisman. His physical body wasn't destroyed, and his Godhead wasn't corroded by the poison. No matter how miserable his injuries were, at least his divine body and life were preserved. He could try to heal his injuries in the future. The second prince and the third prince's gazes were focused on the fifth prince. When they saw the mysterious golden talisman, they immediately frowned and revealed a look of surprise. Divine Talisman of Heaven Amplification, isn't that the talisman that Father bestowed upon him during the ceremony 50 years ago? Oh my God, that's a supreme-grade divine talisman, one of the most precious divine talismans of the royal family. With this divine talisman, it's like having an extra life. He was actually forced into such a state. You can imagine how terrifying the poison was. The two princes recognized that the golden divine talisman was bestowed upon the fifth prince by the king. At that time, the fifth prince was in charge of the divine blood ceremony and had put in a lot of effort for it. The ceremony went smoothly, and a few new faces appeared among the top 10 geniuses. This made the king very pleased, and he happily rewarded the fifth prince with a divine talisman of heaven amplification. He didn't expect that the fifth prince, who had kept it for 50 years, would have no choice but to use it today. With the protection of the two divine artifacts and the divine talisman of heaven amplification, the fifth prince's injuries were stabilized. The poison in his body was under control and didn't spread for the time being. His mind was much clearer than before. He stared at Ji Tianqing with his eyes wide open, then growled harshly, "Tianqing, you bastard. You're dead. No one in this world can save you. If I don't tear you to pieces, I swear I won't be a god." After swearing a vicious oath, he glanced at the second prince and the third prince and said hatefully, "You're really ruthless. You actually colluded with that bastard to kill me. I'll remember this. Just you wait." After saying that, the fifth prince turned to leave. The plan had completely failed, and the 400 experts and experts under his command had all been buried here. He had lost miserably, and there was nothing left for him to stay. He could only leave this place as soon as possible and go back to treat his injuries and get rid of the poison. Although Tsang Yen and Bai Zhu were still howling in pain, they hadn't turned into blood yet. There was no doubt that they would die. The fifth prince fled alone, and he didn't think of bringing them along. At this time, Ji Tianqing held the sword of burial of heaven and blocked the fifth prince's path. He stared at the fifth prince and said in a cold voice, "Don't you think you're too naive to think you can leave here alive? From the moment you kidnapped my daughter, you were bound to die." The fifth prince was shocked and shouted with a ferocious expression, "You bastard! Do you really want to kill me? Are you crazy? Don't you know the consequences of killing me? No matter how capable you are, you can't bear the wrath of the entire blood flame divine kingdom." He wasn't lying. No divine sovereign could bear the consequences of killing a divine sovereign. The third prince was also very anxious and quickly tried to dissuade him, "Young Master Tianqing, don't be rash. The fifth prince's subordinates are all dead, and he has also suffered such a miserable fate. You should vent your anger. Besides, didn't your daughter come back safe and sound? Why did you kill the fifth prince and become a fugitive?" You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.